Good morning. Good morning. Sorry to interrupt your great conversations. It's nice to see everybody this morning at our Intercept Summit. So glad that you could be here. I know there's a few more that are going to be filing in, but we want to get this thing kicked off. So thank you for getting up on a foggy Saturday morning and coming out here to listen and hear and be engaged with this vital fight. It's not like a lot of events. Let's just acknowledge that right off the bat. This is not something where we go, yay, we can't wait to hear about. This is a tough subject and has real life consequences, real people right now. I think one of the things that absolutely started to hit me when I found out more about what goes on with human trafficking is just that right now, just blocks from here, it's happening in our own community. Across the globe, yes. Big cities, yes. But it's happening right here. And I don't know about you. I think by your presence here, you're saying, I don't want to just ignore that. I don't want to just kind of go on and pretend that it's not happening. And so I'm praying and hoping today that this will be a time where if you're kind of searching for how you might find a place, a way that you can engage and help to be part of the solution, be part of the rescuing and the restoration of people that have been enslaved and used, that this would be that opportunity to find maybe the open door, get your foot in the water, so to speak, and do that. And maybe if you're already committed, I pray that today would be a day where you are encouraged and affirmed and kind of just refilled with passion and determination to keep going. Because I know life can be, I don't know if you know this, life can be discouraging sometimes. And especially when you engage with something that is as challenging as this. And so thank you for being here this morning. We're going to put some people up here throughout the day, and you're going to hear long and short versions of every single one could tell you probably an entire day's worth of stories or more. Every one of them should write a book about their life because of what the journey that they've been on. And I wonder how many of you that this could be the beginning of a journey for you. Maybe not to move to Nepal like our brother Brad that's about ready to come up, but maybe, or maybe there's something in Delhi or Ceres or Keys or Turlock or Modesto that you're going to step into. So just thank you for being here. I don't know if anybody told you when you came in, but this is a church building, and so whether that's part of your normal routine or not, that's totally fine. We want you to feel welcome. Make yourself at home. You can bring coffee in here. Whatever you need to do. If you need to, feed your dog, whatever, you can make that happen. But just want you to feel at home. My name's John. I'm the outreach pastor here at New Life. Been here for about 17 years. And I actually grew up here. And I love what's going on. So I'm just going to say a quick prayer, and then we're going to kick it off, all right? Lord God, we just thank you for today. We pray your blessing on today. Pray your protection over each life that is here. God, we've all come here from different backgrounds and different experiences. And so we just ask for you to bless this time and to help us to really be part of really what your heart is, and that is to care for those who are vulnerable. So we ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. We're getting a little bit behind, so I'm just gonna jump in right now to introduce you to a new thing called Destiny Rescue. It's not new, but it's something I've just recently learned about. It began in 2001 with its founder Tony Kerwin and his wife living in Thailand and hearing a conversation about a man who was offered to have sex with children. And it sparked a fire inside of them that has continued to spread. Destiny Rescue's vision is to play a leading role in ending sexual exploitation and trafficking of children in our lifetime. They operate rescue, reintegration, and prevention programs in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Pam Grubbs and her husband Frank are Destiny Rescue ambassadors and also dear friends of this church family. And actually, we consider them part of our faith family. And just please welcome Pam Grubbs. You can have a seat.
Thank you. Pastor John asked me to mention how I got involved in Destiny Rescue, and it started way back. So I won't go that far. But one of the things, it was actually pretty selfish because I was from a family. My family went to church, but I didn't see a passion for Jesus. And when I saw someone that really had joy and a real relationship with Jesus that shined, I thought, I want to be like that. How can I know Jesus? And I saw something. They read the Bible, but they were also giving and active in caring for the poor. And when I met my husband, he was the most godly man that I'd ever met. I found out he was going down to Mexico a couple times a week and caring for the people at the dump and in orphanages. And his mentor was going down to Mexico. And so that common thread just kept going. And so I praise God that we have his word. And he tells us there's over 2,000 verses that compel us to care for the poor and the least of these. You know, for those of you, I just want to say, like Brad, I don't want to offend anybody that doesn't know Jesus, but if you don't, I hope you come to know him today. Jesus saves by grace alone. There's nothing added to it. No good works are needed. Jesus has done everything to pay the price for our sin and save us so we can live with him forever. But to have that growing relationship now, we can't do things to know his heart better. Jeremiah 22:3 says, 22:16 says, he cared for the poor and needy, and so all went well. Is that not what it means to know me, declares the Lord? And Jesus talked about in Matthew 25, caring for the least of these, that won't we do it for him? So anyway, that's how I wanted to get involved with caring for the least of these. And in the past, I'd seen it in ways of caring for those that were orphaned and abandoned, and that is a great way. But when the pandemic happened, when the peak of COVID started to decline, sexual exploitation became the fastest growing crime in the world. And God just really tugged our hearts to be involved. And I love IJM. Everything I heard Brad say, that is just awesome. Destiny Rescue focuses on children that are already trapped. And it's a Christian organization dedicated to rescuing children out of sex trafficking, helping them heal and recover, and sharing the good news of Jesus with them. I think I'm going to take a moment now to let you guys see the short video, and then I'll let you know how you can get involved. Thanks. So I mentioned the reason I originally got involved is because I know God changes our hearts, but you can see that when you get involved, you change, you save the life of these precious children. Tonight, you and I are going to go to bed to go to sleep, but millions of children are going to go to bed to be abused. And without someone to rescue them, to make a difference, their abuse is just going to continue night after night. But you do have an opportunity today to make a difference. And I just want to encourage you again that as Christians, God, these kids are his heart. He loves each and every one of them. Psalm 82:4 tells us, rescue the poor and helpless, deliver them from the grasp of evil people. That's verbatim, isn't that just quite a word picture? And Jeremiah 22:3 states, this is what the Lord says, be fair-minded and just, do what is right, help those who have been robbed, rescue them from their oppressors. These children have been robbed. They've had so much taken away from them, including their childhood. But when you partner with Destiny Rescue, again, part of that process is the healing, and they've become very skilled in trying to help these girls as quickly as possible so they don't lose more months than necessary before they can be reintegrated. And I just want to let you know there's a table in the back with picture folders like this, but this is not child sponsorship. We have pictures because people, are, number one, are used to those, and it's nice to take something home, right? But there's 20 different picture folders out there with a different story of a child who's already been rescued. You can read, for example, Molly, and by the way, the stories are 100% true, but the name has been changed, and their face, if you can see, has been blacked out for their safety. There's a little summary on the top that's G-rated, and then you can pull it out and read a little bit more. It says, Molly loved her family and did all she could to help them. In order to afford her school fees, she began working at a restaurant. She dreaded the customers that would come to molest her. And anyway, if you pull it up, there's more of her story. She's rescued, and I hope that you'll come back. It's really simple. We're looking for people to become rescue partners. Brad said something. He said, Nepal doesn't have the money or doesn't care enough, to get involved as a country themselves. We work in Nepal. We work in 10 different countries. And no, the countries don't have the money or the care, but that's why we're here. We're asking you to partner. And so when you pick one of these folders, it'll hopefully serve as a reminder for you to pray and to compel you to keep giving. Inside is an envelope. It's super simple. Just pull out the envelope inside. You can write your name in here and your address, and you pick whatever amount you want to give every month. And again, I mentioned it's not child sponsorship, so we can pool all the money. So the more money, the more children we can rescue. And so you can give $35 a month, $50 a month. Maybe God is asking you to really step out of your comfort zone like he did my husband and I, maybe give $100 a month. Whatever you choose to give, God will help you do. So I just want to encourage you today to please come back to the table. And if you have any more questions, let me know. And thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Pam. Appreciate it. Just wanted you to meet her and get a taste of what they do. So I want to invite at this point Detective Casey Cooper to come to the stage, and he is going to be sharing with you. He's the human trafficking detective for Stanislaus County Sheriff's Offices, and going to let him kind of tell you about what's going on right here. I'm so thankful for our law enforcement in this area, for our police department. Yeah. And so one of the ways is even to pray for these guys and to encourage and support them. So thank you so much to Detective Cooper for being here with us today. It's on. Yeah.
Hello, I'm a detective with the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department. Something's going to show up there, I promise, okay? There we go. So what we are is Stanislaus County, the Sheriff's Department, and Haven, we joined together and we ended up getting a grant to start our first task force in this county. I'm going to let Katya tell you about that real quick.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katya. So a little bit about the grants. So OVC, human trafficking, we got a grant here in Stanislaus that we're going to collaborate with the Sheriff's Department. So what that looks like is basically building those bridges where human trafficking victims are able to receive services. So for example, one of them being for housing, or it could be anything that medical services as well. So it's pretty much us bringing awareness, of course, and as well as teaching other agencies what human trafficking looks like. And recently we've been going to schools, of course, churches, where other one? We're gonna go to a labor trafficking on the 16th as well. So that's usually what the grant is for us to build those relationships with the community for us to teach them about human trafficking.
Thank you. You can go to the next one. There we go. So real quick, so my partner's standing up here. We're all, we work for the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department. We're part of the Special Victims Unit. Encompassing in that is, you get 5 of us. The grant paid for Mr. Noel right here. He's our newest detective. That's him up there. This up here will play a story in one of our cases later that we're going to talk about. I just like to introduce you to how easy it is for us to change the way we look and how easy it is for our exploiters, because we're not allowed to say pimps, to change the way they look, okay? It's simple and it costs $30 and anyone can do it. So we have a supervisor that isn't here today, and then I have my partners. I have Stephen Noel. Human trafficking, that's what he mainly works. I have Michael Carranza. He works our domestic violence and our elder abuse. Also does a little bit of human trafficking investigation. Detective Barone, sexual assaults on children and adults, also works human trafficking. And then Detective Wall. He does our human trafficking and also sexual assaults on kids. Flip to the next one. So in the slideshow, you're gonna see some stuff that it's going on in our county right now. You're gonna see some pictures of some sex advertisements and some other things that we've located during our investigations. So I try to give you a heads up. And the language that we use, I'm sorry, we're cops. So we tend to use the language in the subculture, and sometimes stuff slips out. So if you have little kids in the room or you don't want them to see some of it, I did my best to mute it, and we're gonna do our best to try to tone down the language, but if something slips out, I'm gonna apologize in advance. My boss wanted me to put it up there, so you guys knew what we were doing. So our thing is panel vans of the 21st century. I don't know about you guys, but when I was growing up, I'm 43. So in the 80s, when I was growing up, my parents were like, stranger danger, right? Don't talk to the guy in the van at the park, don't take candy, stay away from the ice cream man, all that kind of good stuff. Things have changed quite a bit nowadays, okay? From free candy to V-Bucks. How many people here know what V-Bucks are? 1. Yeah, all right. So can I ask a little bit of participation here, all right? How many people in this room have cell phones? There we go. How many people in this room have at least one social media app on that cell phone? Out of everyone in that raised their hand, how many of your kids, grandchildren, nieces, nephews have cell phones and have those same social media applications? Okay, how many of you watch what they're doing? How many of you monitor, like really monitor, go through their hidden, go through their your eyes only. So I'm hoping we're going to touch base a little bit on what's going on in our county and what to look for, and even the language that's being used. Next slide. So the bans nowadays have changed to these. So, like my partner once said, how'd you phrase it? The electronic key.
Yeah, the cell phone in your child's hand is the electronic key to your front door.
So I don't know if you heard that. The cell phone in your kid's hand is the electronic key to your front door. So believe it or not, most parents buy this stuff for their kids. What these have in common is they all get online. What also they have in common is they can communicate with someone you don't know on the other end of that. You don't know what that person wants. And the kids, half the time, believe it's going to be a friend, or believe it's someone that went to their school, or honestly, they have no idea who that person is or what their intentions are. What gets me is the one right up in the middle, the little, what looks to be like a Chromebook. School supplies those, right? At the school, they use filters to keep kids from going on certain websites. Kids can take these and bring them to their house. And most parents don't have filters on their Wi-Fi network. So now kids can get on different applications and access things that they couldn't access at school. Next slide. So in doing what we do, these are some of the applications that we're familiar with because we've had our youngest victim being 9 years old using these and being contacted on them. I don't know if these are at all familiar at all to anybody. This one right here called Chat Roulette. If no one's ever heard about it, you can get on your school Chromebook that they issued you, log on to Chat Roulette, and it's one push. You just log on. You don't even have to put any kind of identifiers in there, your name, none of that. It's anonymous. But what it does is show live cams where I'm sitting and live cams who I'm talking to. And all you have to do is press over, over, over until you find someone that you want to talk to. Kids nowadays will sit there and go on this to be entertained at night because a lot of parents will sit there and just say, oh, go do your homework. They're not checking what's on the Chromebook. They're not checking what's on the phone. A lot of our cases are coming from Chat Roulette, Meet Me, TikTok, Call of Duty, that's one of them, and Roblox. Roblox is sold as a family-friendly game for kids. There is a lot of dangerous people on Roblox. So if you're not monitoring your kids while they're on these applications, you need to start doing that. Or if you know someone that's allowing their kids to sit on these applications, you need to start doing that. Next slide. There's more. There's so many applications we've came across. Minecraft, Fortnite. So remember the V-Bucks thing I was telling you about? A lot of these kids will go on Fortnite. Fortnite's free to play. You can download it and you can start playing it. In order for you to upgrade your character or what you're using in this game, you need to purchase with real money V-Bucks. A lot of parents are like, I'm not going to spend $20 so you can get it, you can make your character look different or buy a different looking weapon, right? So they'll meet people on Fortnite and then they'll transition them to other social media applications to get V-Buck codes. Easy as that, that's how it starts. I'm your friend, I'll give you 20 V-Bucks, give me your Snapchat name and I'll send it to you. And then it starts transitioning from there and then they start asking for more and more and more. Next slide. So these are some of the arrests we're going to talk about. These are all people in our county. These are all people we've contacted, arrested, and have been sentenced to prison in one way or another. Last time I was here, I talked a little bit about the guy in the middle of Rosinski. We're going to pretty much go down the line one by one by one, and so you can see what's going on. As far as this is the side of the screen of the bad guys. When we serve our warrants, if you go to the next slide, caution you a little bit. This is what we're finding when we're following up and we're hitting these houses and we're taking these guys to jail, okay? So that's a little blurry, I apologize. Over here is what they set up on. This is their computer setting that they're talking to our kids on, that they're exploiting our children with. Next one over is an actual commercialized sex advertisement that one of the kids ended up getting sucked into, okay? Next one over is we have sex dolls. These sex dolls are, you can buy them online, and they are teen to toddler size. And that's what these guys are doing. A little bit more over, you have the box that the doll came in. This wasn't one guy, this wasn't two guys. These were numerous houses that we hit, and we're finding these over and over and over again. They're exploiting at I want to say a faster rate due to COVID, because you have kids that were cooped up. Did you want to talk?
Yeah, so just one thing to add on these, I think my voice is on. I'll use the microphone. So just one thing to add on these smaller sex toys here. The way that they're advertised on wish.com is at a discounted rate because they're a smaller size. If you look at them, and if you actually, when we remove them from the house on the search warrant, they are atomically correct size and shape to toddlers and infants. So they're being sold as a discounted item because of their smaller size, but obviously the real reason why they're being sold is for what we're here to talk about today.
Next slide. So what we wanted to do is kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what's being said online. A lot of people don't know the terminology that's being used. I'm still learning it, and these lists are being updated. We also have these lists. They're on our little table out there if you guys want to swipe them. They're acronyms. Some surprise me. Some don't. It's simple. But when you're looking at what these kids are typing, a lot of people don't understand, like, parents over shoulder, right? So they can tone down who they're talking to or what they're talking to, depending on what the content is. Feel free to take a look. It kind of blew my mind away a little bit on what was being said. And then you start mixing in the numbers with them. The sneaky way to say sex, 53X, right? Parents are gone, 99. If you take the time to learn the language, it's going to open up a whole little world to you. And I always have parents, well, I always look at my kid's phone. And then they come in, and then I start looking at it. My partners start looking at it, and we start seeing little things that if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss them. This might not be the top conversation on their phone, and it might not even be in the actual text message stream. It could be on Mascot. It could be on Snapchat. You don't know. It could be in like your Facebook messaging system. All these things are hidden within inside. Next slide. So this is where it gets complicated, is emojis, okay? Emojis started out, when they first came out, they were cute, they were easy to, you could throw a picture up and you can describe to people what was going on, what was being said. If you go to the next slide, emojis have since taken on a whole new meaning with teenagers. Not only with teenagers, but with exploiters. This is a small sample. We have a bigger list out there if you want to look at them. But it's the simplest thing from a microphone to meaning a male orgasm, an octopus meaning cuddles, a circus tent, an erection. All little things, if you're not paying attention to when it shows up on a phone, you could think they're talking about, a carnival or the fair coming into town. But you gotta take it into the entire context of what's going on. And some more. The next one's where it gets a little complicated. You start mixing them up, and they take on a whole separate meaning. These are some of the ones that we found on some of our CSEC or commercially sexually exploited children devices. And simple, a donut and a banana, right? Simple little things that they turn into, they make it sexual. You can go to the next slide.
Both these videos, there we go. Both these videos are going to play in the background while I kind of talk about this case. This is a local case that we had. I was actually the case agent on, posing as a 15-year-old male on a dating website. We got the idea from actually a group home here in Turlock, where they had mentioned that one of their students or one of the guests, the residents of their home, had been sneaking out to the Turlock rest stop, and one of the staff members actually found him in the male restroom with an adult male. Kind of through inspecting his phone, we found out that he was posing as an adult male, even though he was 15 years old, and he was meeting with other men at the Turlock rest stop, to have sexual encounters in exchange for money, actually in exchange for e-money through PlayStation and Xbox games. He was getting gift cards and things like that sent from him, or sent to him. So I think if you actually click, the videos will play, and then click the next one, and that way you get two perspectives of the kind of how we contact these predators. Maybe not. There we go. Okay. So we got the idea. We wrote a search warrant to take over his account and started communicating with the people he was communicating with as him. And then in addition to that, I actually started my own accounts, and we started communicating with people. We've made several arrests since then. This arrest that you're seeing now started from that initial night that we started the investigation. And I was immediately contacted by a male subject on this dating website. It's based on proximity to you. So we began communicating. Within the first few messages, I told him that I had a secret that I needed to tell him, that I was under the age of 18. And his response was, "That's okay, just don't tell the cops." So we briefly had a chuckle because I said, well, I think they already know. But so we began communicating, and I think we sent over 500 messages back and forth to each other, trying to arrange a time that we could meet up. During that conversation, he actually tried to summon me to a hotel room with another adult male, and in that text message, he actually said, hey, he doesn't know that you're underage, so if he asks you, just tell him that you're 18 so he doesn't get freaked out. We ended up setting up a date. I told him that I went to Central Valley High School, and he actually requested this day that we took him down that I call him immediately. So I snuck into our restroom at the sheriff's office, said, hey, sorry, I had to tell the teacher I had to get out of class, to make it sound like I was somewhere, and told him, hey, I'll ditch my 6th period class if you can pick me up at the church down the street from Central Valley High School. At that point, we had him identified. We had assisting detectives who were following him. They followed him to a house in Modesto where he dropped off his 2 minor children, and then also removed all of the second and third row out of his van, and then started to put in a mattress and various other items that he believed that we were going to use. So this is actually in the back of a church parking lot. This is him being arrested. Like I said, the conversation went on for several days. During that time, he talked about my parents, about them not knowing what was going on, that I needed to keep it a secret from them. He sent me several of the same emojis. He actually started to teach me about the emojis that we just showed you, what they meant. Hey, when I send you this, it means this. Now delete this message. When I send you this, I'm talking about this. Now delete this message. He had conversations with me on the application that we initially met. It has an instant message feature. We had conversations on Snapchat, and we had texting conversations. He talked to me about downloading an app called Text Now, or WhatsApp, that could be on my phone and used by my phone, but it wasn't in my main messages, so it would be harder for my parents to find. So if you want to go to the next slide. Sorry, the other video didn't play, but it's just more of the same. This is Mr. Jose Ruiz, and I'm happy to tell you that just a few weeks ago, prior to his preliminary hearing, he took a 3-year prison sentence with an additional 6 years of parole, and he is a lifetime sex offender registrant because of this case. That was prior to any prelim, prior to any testimony. He was never made aware that the person he was communicating with the entire time was me. I sat in the back of the courtroom, dressed just like this, and listened to the judge sentence him to his prison sentence. The sentencing is still frustrating to me because he committed 3 felonies, right? Not only did he engage in a conversation with a minor with sexual purpose, he sent harmful matter to what he believed to be a minor with harmful purpose, but then he also arranged and went forward with the meeting with a sexual intent or sexual purpose. The triad for that, or the way that the state of California views that, that's a 9-year prison sentence. So if you do the math on the 3 plus 6, that's where you get your 9. This was his first offense. He had not even so much been stopped for a traffic violation prior to this. So the people that we are catching, these predators that are out there in plain sight, are unfortunately hidden right in plain sight. They're not getting in trouble for the most part. They are what you would assume to be upstanding citizens of our community. He's right in our community. He's a father. I cannot remember the job he worked at, but it was a job in public where he had public interaction with people on a regular basis. So it's not your, like we go back to, it's not the panelist van anymore, right? It is the stranger who is hidden right in plain sight.
Those were the only videos I could pull up to actually show you what an arrest looks like when we go and take these guys down. I know some people sit here and say this sounds more like an internet crime, not human trafficking. So if you go to the next slide, I'll go through some of these and try to explain. The internet crimes against our kids that are occurring in our county are also human trafficking. It's incorporated in if someone attempts to obtain a picture or produce a picture of our child, that encompasses human trafficking of a minor. That's one of those charges. So on some of these, when these exploiters are attempting to access our kids, they're committing human trafficking violations. That's what we arrest them on. That isn't always what they can get convicted for, but that is what we arrest them for. This guy up here, I talked about last time I was here, was Mr. Rosinski. This was the first case I ever worked as a UC. I pretended to be a 14-year-old girl. I went to Patterson High School. I was a swimmer, and he started communicating with me, and it went from there. I ended up telling him that, yeah, I've turned a couple dates, which, if you're familiar with the terminology of dates, is a sex act in exchange for money. He decided he was going to set me up in Antioch, but I was in Fresno, right? So I told him I would meet him at an Amtrak station. So we met in Denair, right here at the Amtrak station. Mikey was part of the takedown, and I described myself as I was wearing a black dress. I had knee-high boots on with purple hair. So I figured, what are the chances of someone getting off that Amtrak train with that description? Mikey was point. And he was like, what did you say you look like? And I gave it again. He's like, yeah, someone matching that description's getting off, and he's getting out the contactor right now. So Rosinski gets out of his car, runs up, starts helping her. She thinks that's her Uber driver. See where this is going? Mikey jumps out of the car, takes the guy into custody, separate him. We end up interviewing everyone. She was like, I thought he was my Uber driver. I ordered an Uber. He was there to pick me up thinking I was a kid, and he was going to take me to Antioch and turn me out, right? He was sentenced to 180 days, 3 years probation, and $300 fine. That doesn't happen anymore. This was the first case we worked. Our DAs weren't familiar with UC type stuff, so this is what he ended up getting. He doesn't live in our county anymore. He has since moved on, which I'm thankful for. But we do keep in contact with the county he went to, and they are fully aware of who he is and what he's capable of. So go to the next slide. As time went on, we got a little bit better at what we were doing. This is Mr. Young. He was sentenced to 10 years, 8 months, 10 years parole, lifetime 290. Now I want you to understand, this was his second offense of human trafficking of a minor. So he was already out on PRCS, post-release community service. So he had an ankle monitor on, and he was still running around with a 16-year-old girl. I think he had 7 victims total, the youngest being 16, the oldest being 24. He was running them out of hotels on 9th Street in Modesto, and on McHenry, I believe. And he had a pretty lucrative business running these females out of these hotels. My partner at the time, Victor, he had to transition to patrol. But he ended up working this case, and we helped him out a little bit on it. But Cordero, while in custody, was still making jail phone calls and telling the girls where to go, how to turn dates, and to put the money on his books while he was in custody. So while we were going through this process of going to trial, we brought all this stuff in. He was looking at, I think, 25 years to life or something like that. He ended up they settled on this, 10 years, 8 months. Lifetime 290, and he's going to be on parole when he gets out. He is not coming back to our county. He's going to parole to a Bay Area county after that, because that's what they decided. That's where he was from, because he was not originally from Stanislaus County. He came from a Bay Area county over here to traffic our kid. No more. You go to the next slide. This one was a case that we worked with Newman, and this is Mr. Cesar Gallardo. We took this case federal. His victim was a 9-year-old in Oklahoma. So he met her on Discord. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Discord or not, but it's like a community hub for social media applications and gaming. So if you like to play Roblox and want to talk about Roblox and want to engage with other people that play Roblox and share videos from your Snapchat, you get Discord, and all this is encompassed into one. You can chat, send messages, send videos, video call people. It's an app that's meant to bring a community together. He chose to do something different and a little bit more felonious. So he was contacting this little girl, was telling her what to do, how to do it, and where to send it. We ended up intercepting some of these messages through NetMech, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And because he was producing, that's what we call producing, where he was telling her what to do, how to do it, and where to send it. So he was directing her on what she was creating. We took it federal. We arrested him here in the city of Newman, where then he was driven to Fresno and flown from Fresno to Oklahoma. When he landed in Oklahoma, they took him straight in the courtroom. 2 days later, he took 15 years. I didn't have to do anything but turn my report in. I think the extent to his charges was 35 years, but he took 15, and he's off the streets. We won't see him for probably, feds are a little bit more stricter on their sentencing, so he'll do 85% of that time before he even gets a chance to get out. I think there is one more after this one. So this is Mr. Armstrong. He was a parolee that paroled to Modesto, was originally from Modesto. Another agency did a traffic stop on him. Since he was on parole, they called his parole officer. He was found with one open beer, and the agency arrested him for the open beer. Thank goodness we work with parole, and parole went, something's weird, because there is a 14-year-old girl in the car with this guy who is a registered sex offender, a known human trafficker, a convicted human trafficker, and a 290 sex registrant. So that agency booked him for the open container and a parole violation. That parole agent called us, and we all got together, and we ended up taking phones. In these phones, we had the one girl. We also had her 2 friends, one of which was a cousin that lived in the city of Turlock, that he was communicating with. He went to an extent to, it took us a while, to figure it out. He kept saying, we're going to take it to the max. We're going to take it to the max, right? I don't know if that's code, but I guess there was a club called the Max, and that's where he was taking these girls to work out of. So when he said taking it to the max, he meant Club Max or whatever club it was. So he was, in essence, prostituting our kids out of a club in Modesto, a kid from Turlock and 2 from Modesto, right? He sold himself as an agent, and he would take them and take pictures. So he would drive them to the mall and on upper deck, park his nice little Chrysler 300. They would sit on the hoods, and those were his sex advertisements. Then he would post on Skip the Games or Mega Personals. Because this parole agent knew what he was doing, provided all this information to us, we went and found him. It wasn't hard because he was already in jail for having an open beer in a car, right? He was getting ready to get released. We sat down, talked to him, and we ended up getting a full confession out of him while we were sitting there in the room with him. He was trying to get 4 years for what he did. That's what he was pushing for. The girl that was contacted in the car said she would testify against him because she didn't know he was a sex offender. And she didn't like the fact that he was a sex offender. So I said, okay, let's roll with that. She didn't have to testify. We got to the courtroom, he saw her, and he ended up taking a little more than 14 years, right? That same victim, after seeing what she did, turned over another exploiter or pimp out of the city of Stockton. They are working that case now, and that guy is looking at 35 years, and they're not taking any less than 35 years on that guy. So this one girl gave us 2 predators within 50 miles of each other that both had connections to our area. This is what we're dealing with in our county pretty regularly. And that's why you see all of us, we have to work together in order to achieve this. If it was just one of us, we'd get buried. But I do a lot of the forensic stuff. We have our UC work. We have to go through and do interviews, follow-ups, reports. Without everyone's help, we couldn't get what we're getting right now and who we're identifying. We're identifying traffickers at a faster rate. On top of that, we're identifying victims faster. And with doing that, we're letting parents know what's going on because a lot of parents just have no idea. Next slide. So with us, like I said, we partner with Haven. These are some of the other services that we encompass and who we go to. If, depending on what their needs are and what that victim is looking for, we'll steer the victim service to that. We want success out of that victim. We don't want them to go backwards in time. We want them to move forward. We found if we give options, we're not saying you have to do this one. We have options. Pick. Our victims like to pick. Once they get to pick what they want, we find our success rate is a lot better than just saying, here, this is what you have to deal with. Those are our contact information, mine and Detective Walls if you need us.
Feel free to take a picture of this slide if you guys want, including my phone number and Casey's phone number. Our partners are available as well, but we say this and we mean it. We are 100% committed to this fight that is in our own community, in our own backyard. I'll step out of the way so you guys can get the photo. But our phones are always on. We're always available. There's one of us in the county that is on call 24/7. We rotate weekly, but there's always one detective from the Sheriff's Office Special Victims Unit that is available for call-outs or responses 365 days a year. The thing that, and one other thing I'd like to add too, is that we do presentations. Just yesterday we did a presentation at elementary school. We present to middle schools, high schools. We do all kinds of community outreach. And because of that, Casey talked about the grant and that we were awarded through with the Haven, but because of that community outreach, because of the work that the sheriff himself and that the sheriff's office is putting into this, that is putting into the fight of human trafficking, that's got us the grant position. That was a nationwide application. So all the law enforcement agencies, any and all law enforcement agencies nationwide, there were several agencies that received it, but we were one of those agencies. Not only because we make arrests and we rescue victims, but also because we spend time coming out and communicating or talking to our community, educating our children, educating our teachers, school staff, hospital staff. We kind of hit all areas of it because just like I'm sure it's been said here already, and it'll be said again if it hasn't, everybody in the community plays a part in this, right? Whether it be church staff, teachers are a huge role, especially with the catching it early. Hospital staff, law enforcement, coaches, all those, every community outreach that we can find, we benefit from that. The group benefits from that. So if you guys know of something or you would like us to come and do a presentation at something that you have, whether you're a teacher or you work in a hospital or any other thing that you say, hey, they would just like to hear you guys talk about this because it's happening right here. I can 100% guarantee without fail it is occurring at this park just over here to the north, this baseball field. Commercialized sex trafficking is occurring there. It's occurring at the hotels down the street on West Main. It's occurring obviously on 9th Street, on McHenry, and scarier than all those places, it's occurring online right under our noses. And it starts with our kids, so please reach out to us. We love coming out and talking to our community about the work that we're doing and the direct impact that it has on our community right here. Our community. We all live in this community. We all have families and children and everything, so it's something that's very close and connected to all of us in this unit, as well as the staff at Haven. Without permission, we work with all of these different organizations because we all genuinely care about this problem. So please reach out to us day or night. I think we're a little early on our time. So that's good. We got through everything and we're done a little early. We got you guys some of your time back. We're gonna be here too. Go ahead, one more slide. Okay, maybe we're not early. We're right on time then. Oh, this is Casey's sales pitch. He doesn't work for this company, I promise. But he's gonna talk about it.
Sorry, there's 2 more slides, I apologize. So when we're doing this, we like to do like a question and answer session at the end. And parents always tend to ask me, well, what can I do at home, right? So I have 5 kids, oldest being 24, youngest being 12, 13, she's gonna be 13, right? So I have 5 kids sitting at home. This is what I use. Sophos, don't work for the company, I don't make any money, none of that stuff, okay? But I use this brand, Sophos, and then I went to Costco and I bought a different wave router that has different frequencies on it. That way my kids have a frequency where I can limit everything and anything they get on, YouTube, Snapchat, they can't access that one, right? And then there's other, for my older kids that are in college that need access to stuff, they get a different frequency so they can access stuff. And then me and the wife, we get whatever we want because I pay the bills. So these 2 things together is what I use in my house that works for my kids, but I have a very open relationship with my kids. They know what I expect and what I don't expect, and their cell phone or their electronic device is not theirs, it's mine, okay? I pay it, I pay the bill, they don't. So if I wanna look in it, I look in it. If I wanna go through it, I go through it, and I don't do it every Friday. So they know what time it's whenever I feel the need to look at it. They will hand it over. And if they choose to not hand it over, I then take it. Those are their options. As a parent, that's what I do. This is what works. One more. So this slide we put up just to kind of show you. The top picture is what our department wants us to look like, okay? This is what they expect us, right? The bottom picture and what you see right now is what we look like when we go out in the public. When we go and talk to kids, we don't go in uniform. The reason we do this is we want the kids to approach us and talk to us. And we found if we look professional, kids are intimidated. If I look dressed down, we look comfortable, we look like we're happy to be here, we have more conversations, open conversations that lead somewhere. So this is what we do. There's a little video. It's more of a fun video, but if you guys have questions, we can skip the video if you guys want to ask questions. We like question and answer sessions. We have like 5 minutes left. Oh, and we'll be back there too in the booth if you have questions too. So you can go ahead and play the video, and then we'll kind of get out of your hair after that.
Hi, I'm Jack Vale, and I wanted to see how easy it would be to get personal information from complete strangers. And while I'm at it, of course, freak them out a little bit. Keep in mind when you watch this video, I got all of this information just by searching their personal social media posts. And I got it by searching for the closest Twitter, Instagram, and other social media posts to my current location. Let's go. Sorry to bother you. Is your name Jessica?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jack.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. How are you?
Good. That's my name.
Ashley. Whenever it comes to me and I know who it is, okay. I know it's weird, but I have to shout it out to see if I'm right, and in that case, I was right, so.
What the f*** right now? Wait a minute.
Are you Stephanie?
How do you know me?
How you doing? I'm Jack.
Did you just make that up and you said that?
No, Elena, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say happy birthday. Someone in your family is referred to as Pops. Is it like a dad or a grandpa or something?
You were tripping me out right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Hi,
Happy
Jack.
birthday to you too, because I know you were actually, I should have said it to you because yours was before hers. But
birthdays?
anyway, well, it's been like 7 weeks now or something like that. But anyway, good to see you guys. See you later. Like a little white curly dog, sort of like a little white dog.
Stop it.
That's creepy.
Do you have a dog?
Paris.
I don't know Paris. Wait.
It wasn't Paris though. It was like the first few letters, like pear or par or something like that. Am I right?
I don't know. I didn't know she had a dog.
Seriously?
I swear to God.
Blanca or Blanca? Is that, how did I?
Blanca.
It's what?
Blanca.
Blanca. Blanca. Okay. Is that your mom?
How do you know all this?
Bear, I feel like, or something like.
Who are you? I call Paris Spear Bear.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Cannot.
Recently, like, had lunch, dinner, or something like that. Chicken. There was chicken involved. I know for sure.
Shut the hell up.
I know. Nikki?
You're kidding me.
Is it right?
Yeah.
See what I mean? Yeah.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
You were tripping me out.
Who's like Richard? I keep thinking Richard. What is it?
Richard Parker.
Richard Parker, like Peter Parker, because I had a Spider-Man flashback. Your last name starts with a K. Crow, something like that.
Who told you to do this? Because that's a lie.
Did you leave your license somewhere?
Seriously, did you drop it?
There's some business that you're in, some kind of a business that has to do with cell company or phone company or something like that. Yes? Oh, wait. Is it AT&T?
What the is that?
AT&T, yeah. Let me see what else I can find out from your Instagram. So this is a social media experiment. And there's video cameras. Through that picture, we were able to find out all kinds of other stuff. No, it's just. Oh no, it was just a little prank, a hidden camera prank. You're welcome. See you later. So my name's Jack Vale.
Hi, Jack.
So I use social media all the time, and this experiment has definitely made me think a little differently about it. But I want to. Hi, I'm Jack Vale, and I wanted to.
That's freaky. I didn't even know you could do that. That tells you a lot, man, right there. Holy cow. So it's been a lot, right? It's been drinking from the fire hose this morning. And just thank you for sticking with it. We're going to have a little break here. It was supposed to be from 10:30 to 11, but we're going to go from now until 11:15. So if you want to get up and help yourself to some coffee or some snacks, go talk to some people at the booths. If you want to just lay down in one of the rows, take a little nap, you can do that. We'll be back in here at 11:15. Thanks, you guys. All right. Good little break. All right. I know there's going to be some people falling back in here, but thank you so much for sticking with us. And we're going to just keep moving forward. I'm really excited about our next speaker. Since 2011, Love Never Fails has been rescuing, restoring, and empowering survivors of sex trafficking through strategic housing, workforce development, education, racial equity, diversity, and inclusion, survivor empowerment, mentoring, search and recovery, community activism, church coalition, and prayer. Vanessa Russell is the founder and executive director of Love Never Fails. And after a decade of teaching hundreds of individuals the art of dance, in 2011, one of her 15-year-old students was abducted and human trafficked. Although she was eventually located and is now being restored, Vanessa encountered many others like her student who were U.S.-born women, men, and children trapped in modern-day slavery. Her response was to launch Love Never Fails, a nonprofit dedicated to the restoration, education, protection of those involved or at risk of becoming involved in domestic human trafficking. Love Never Fails has educated thousands of children and community members on the issue of human trafficking, opened 4 homes that provide long-term safe housing and restorative services for over 200 women, men, youth, and children impacted by human trafficking. And they launched an IT academy connecting underserved community members with financially sustainable careers. Vanessa believes that the issue of human trafficking can be solved through love expressed in prayer, safe housing, mentoring, job training, outreach, and education. Vanessa is an author, speaker, educator, pastor, community leader, and winner of a whole list of awards. Her professional hope is to inspire and motivate people to develop business and themselves. She and her husband, Pastor Timothy Russell, are blessed to have 7 children and 5 grandchildren. We are privileged to have her speak to us today. Would you join me in welcoming Vanessa Russell?
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful to be here with you today. And I just wanted to say a quick shout out. Hopefully you had a chance to meet Sandy out there in the foyer, or as my husband says, the lobby. He's always correcting me when I use French for other words. But I hope you had an opportunity to check in and look forward to talking with you in a little bit. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Love Never Fails. John just shared really the highlights, and I think that's really what I wanted to make sure that you know about what we do and what is informing the information that I'm going to be sharing with you today. The title of our time here is When Coercion Looks Like Choice. And the reason why this is a very important topic to deal with is in today's world, there are many narratives that are being shared that say we want people to make their own choices when they're 18 and above. We want them to have agency. Anybody ever hear that word, agency? Hear that word, agency? We want them to have agency. We want them to make their own choices. And I do too. But today you're going to be hearing a little bit of my sort of approach to determining whether people actually are making choices or whether people are being coerced into saying that they want to be in certain relationships or want to be in certain places. And coercion is very complicated. So I think it's important that we spend some dedicated time thinking about this. Before I go deeply into that, I wanted to just share, as was mentioned, Love Never Fails has been in place for the last 12 years. We started because I was teaching inner city kids dance in the Bay Area, and I was working in the tech industry as a senior leader simultaneously. Thought that was what, anybody ever think that God's going to use you this way and you end up going over here? Anybody? Everybody's laughing. Okay. You know, God has got a sense of humor. He is funny. This morning I was driving in and I was just talking to him, just having a little chuckle. I'm weird like that. I like laughing with God. I like talking to him like, are we a friend of God? He's my friend. I have conversations with him. I'm like, oh, I see what you did there. Ooh, you're tricky. I talk to God like that all the time. I'm weird like that. So I just want you to know that that's the way that I have really done Love Never Fails, is literally through this constant conversation with the Lord about things that are being put in my lap that I have no expertise to manage. I have no understanding on how to proceed. And if you're anything like me, it's just a little bit of crazy. Anybody out there? Just a little bit of crazy that's required in order to move forward in the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So Love Never Fails started because I was teaching inner city kids dance. I thought that's what I was going to do. You know, I was teaching them all kinds of genres. It was so much fun. Had, hundreds and hundreds of kids. And then one day, a 15-year-old showed up, or someone brought, they said, I got a 15-year-old outside. I need you to talk to her. Because I prayed, I saw her out on a blade or a track, which is a place where people are being sold, and I knew something was wrong because she was one of our church members, and or the daughter, the niece of one of our church members. I knew something was wrong, so I pulled over and talked to her, and I asked the Lord, what should I do with her? And he said, bring her to Vanessa. So I was teaching a 12-step recovery class at the time. So she came and interrupted my class. She got her some clothes, came and interrupted my class, and I got this 15-year-old outside, and the Lord said for you to go get her. I'm like, what? So I go outside, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is my student. So we go and sit down and have some hot cocoa. I tell my 12-step folks, let's make this quick. Open share is over. No, I'm just kidding. Those of you who are, I got to go. I'm going to go get hot cocoa. Went over there, talked to her, and I learned about so many horrific things, being shot at, being raped, being beaten. My dance student, and I call myself Mama V, my baby, being harmed in this way. And that just blew me away. I sleepless nights, crying every day, couldn't stop thinking about it. I tried to run from it. I tried to stay away from it. I said, look, Lord, I have been through a lot. I myself am a survivor of all kinds of trauma, all kinds of poverty. And I was like, I thought I was just doing dance. And the Lord said, nope, I've got something more for you to do. And so I went forward when I started Love Never Fails. Fast forward to today, if you want to go to the next slide. We are an organization that empowers all people to express and experience their best sense of humanity. And we see our mission as symbiotic in that the people that we serve get to express and experience their best sense of humanity, and we get to do the same for them. So it's not a rescue thing, right? Because many of us 92% of Love Never Fails staff are survivors of interpersonal violence. There's about 40 of us now, and we all have something. And so when we get to meet with someone who's surviving human trafficking, they minister to us in areas that sometimes we were completely unaware of. So this is our mission. If we go to the next slide, as was mentioned, we do a variety of things. We find missing children. We actually have a contract with Contra Costa County Children Family Services to find missing foster children. We've worked on about 10 cases so far. We just started that last year in August. And we get to go find those young people and bring them back to some kind of safety and offer them aftercare. We also have our safe houses. Now we have 7 houses. I need to update our bio. 47 beds. We house women and children, or women that are single, women that are pregnant, or girls ages 13 to 17. We have a foster care diversion program, or men and their families. Some of our men have been labor trafficked. We just received a man that was labor trafficked from Turkey. So we have different populations that we're serving, all with the hope of bringing people to a purpose that was designed by God, so that they can live their best life. And part of that is we noticed that when people were graduating from our houses, they were graduating with emotional stability, psychological stability, physical, freedom, but they didn't have any economic freedom. So they were going back to abusive families and abusive partners and abusive situations. And so we said, we got to do something to get them economic freedom. And let me tell you, there are a lot of great programs out there, but one thing that we do a little differently is that we are trauma informed, which means we've identified 114 barriers to employment that people might experience. And we've written a white paper on that if you want to read it. But these are the barriers that we are very intentional about removing. Transportation barriers, barriers in housing, barriers with mental health, barriers with childcare. So these are the things that are kind of wrapped around our IT training classes, which are teaching people to be AWS cloud practitioners or CompTIA AA+ success engineers, or Salesforce database analysts, or sales development reps for companies like Meraki and Cisco. These are the outcomes that we're seeing after we've educated 500 students in the last 4 years. If you want to go to the next slide. We also do mentoring. We have a 10-hour mentoring program that you can do remotely, and there's a check-in over a 4-week period, and that's something that actually Sandy runs, and she was at the table. If you're interested in signing up for our mentoring program, that is a great way to help someone who has been trafficked or is at risk of trafficking with trauma-informed methodologies. And lastly, the last 2 things, we do street and virtual outreach. So we're out on the streets of Modesto, Manteca, Stockton, Oakland, out on the streets of Hayward, San Jose, East Palo Alto, and Sacramento, all of these different places, and we rotate and we go right up to the people, and we make sure that they have an opportunity to know that somebody loves them. And then we also call them on the phone, the ads that are posted, we call them. That's what virtual outreach, that is open to everyone here if you want to participate. And lastly, we have a 24/7 prayer line, crisis line. And this is something we just implemented at the end of last year. We're really proud of that, and we're really grateful to the Lord for providing an intercessor that can take lead on that. If you want to go to the next line. So let's talk about when choice looks like coercion. Again, the reason why this is such an important topic is oftentimes you will hear, like if you just rely on the law, all you have to do with somebody to say, do you want to be here? And if that person says yes, it's over. We walk away, they want to be here, they've said yes, they have taken agency, and they have given their words, and so now it's you want to be here, so you're going to deal with the outcomes, you're going to deal with the consequences. And some of us kind of take that stance even in our own families or in our own communities. If somebody's saying, I want to be in this situation, I need us to start thinking about what's underneath that decision. I need us to go a little deeper. So let's go to the next slide. So choice, just for a definition, choice is making a decision between 2 or more possibilities. So one thing I want to talk to you about, there are some bills out, and I will be mentioning them throughout my time. SB 357 is one of the bills that legalized loitering for the purpose of prostitution on January 1st. Did you guys know that? In the state of California, it is legal to loiter and solicit sex. Not legal to commit prostitution yet, and this is why we have to be more vocal. We have to get involved. There's a lot of a movement. It's called Decrim CA, and it is a movement to decriminalize prostitution for buyers, for exploiters, and for the exploited. I am in agreement with decriminalizing for the exploited personally, but I want to see exit services, alternatives. Here's the choice part. It's not a choice unless there's an alternative. If there's not a viable alternative, my yes means nothing. If we go to the next slide. Coercion is the use of force or persuasion to influence someone to choose something that does not benefit them. So coercion, gaslighting, manipulation, all of these things are so prominent in our culture today. We are being coerced online all the time to influence, to think about, to choose certain things, to buy certain things, to be certain ways, that we've become desensitized to when it's right here in front of us, especially in the case of human trafficking. And so I want to urge you to start to think. I want us to break things down. When we're talking to people and they say, yes, I want to do this, let's take a pause and let's think through whether their yes means choice or coercion. Let's go to the next slide. So how do you evaluate choice? Next slide. If we go and look at what does yes or no mean. So I like this. I like to use an iceberg visual for us to think about what's at the top, at the surface, that we are using legally to determine whether someone wants to be trafficked. At the top, above the surface, a yes is yes and a no is no. You said yes, but underneath the yes, there are systems of power, discriminalization, isms. There's the desire, a basic human need for love, a need for sustainable income, a need for personal safety, a need for mental health, a need for basic food needs, and also our own self-love and esteem. So if an individual is lacking any of these things that are under the surface that inform the surface yes or no, is it really a yes? Next slide. So here's a test that I've created, and I've done some studying of decision-making models. And I want to share this with you so that you can begin to think about it. How do I make choices? How do I make decisions? Well, first thing that I think you do is you start off with a baseline of self-love, of boundaries, and of stabilization. It is very hard to make good decisions and good choices when you are homeless, because there's a certain desperation that you're experiencing. If you want to break it down clinically, that you have this decision-making center that's in your brain called the prefrontal cortex, and it helps you to sort things and think through things analytically, and it's mathematical and it's deductive. And then there's the emotional brain, which is managed by the amygdala gland. And there's all of these erratic thoughts that come into your mind when the amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex. So you can't think anymore. Ever have a situation where you get into a car accident and you got to figure out who you're going to call? Have you ever had a situation where someone's misbehaving in a shopping market and you see them yelling and screaming, and all of a sudden you can't think about what to do? You're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Or a fire in your house. Or maybe you know someone who's experienced domestic violence, and right at that moment when they say to you, this is what's happened to you, you go, I can't think. I can't think. That's because your thinking brain has taken a nap. So the reason I'm mentioning this to you is because you can't expect people that are living on the street that have been stripped of certain stabilization pieces. They're hungry, they have no housing, they don't have love, they haven't had sleep for days, maybe they're addicted to a substance. Their thinking brain is not all there. Can we agree? Okay, so first step is self-love, boundaries, and stabilization. These are really important. So if those are lacking, you got to go, I'm not sure if this is really a choice, period. Right? But then maybe they feel like they're kind of stabilized. Maybe they're living in a shelter. Maybe they say really positive things about themselves. And maybe they have good boundaries. You know, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. This is what I'm going to do. Well, let's talk some more. First step towards your choice test is gather information. During this step, a person has the opportunity and means to gather information about the decision being made. Now, this happens a lot with survivors of human trafficking, whether it's sex or labor. They're made a proposition. Most of the times, there's no analysis that goes into the proposition. I was just reading a story about a young lady who was offered a makeup job to tour with famous people and do their makeup. She was from Livermore, California. And she thought that that's what it was going to be, and she thought the people that she was dealing with were legitimate. Unfortunately, they ended up being traffickers. She was only 19. She shared it with her parents, but there wasn't a lot of analysis about what is this company that you're part of? And what are some other alternatives? And have we looked into other beauty opportunities for you? See, this is where we begin to weigh out, how much am I getting paid? What are the terms of my payment? How often am I going to have to travel? Are there other alternatives available to me, or is this a dream come true? Okay, these are situations that kind of happen when you're being recruited. And if you're looking at choice, real choice, you have to have the opportunity to gather information. It can't be, hey, I'm going to bring you on this tour. You're going to be a beauty person tomorrow. I need you to show up at the airport. We're going to leave at 9 o'clock. That's not leaving enough time for someone to process and get people involved in their community to make sure this is a safe opportunity. So there's choice. Assessing the alternatives. This is, again, is there another opportunity to be a music artist? Is there another opportunity to be a model? If there is no other opportunity, then, and you haven't had time to assess it, I wonder how valid this choice is. And even better, if somebody, even more pointed to the point, what if somebody says to you, you know what, all you got to do is just, be with like one guy or two guys. If you really love me, you'll do this. If you really might, because I'm going to have to move away. If I can't get enough money to pay for my rent this month, I'm going to have to move away. And I love you, and I want to form a family with you, and I want to be your husband. But I just need you to do a couple times. That's the line. Just need you to do this a couple times. And a couple times turns into a couple months and a couple years. And before you know it, your life has amounted to nothing. So assessing the alternatives. Then you have to be able to verbalize the choice. If you're at a party and there's a guy there, and he's smoking weed, and he says, hey, you want to smoke? And you're like, yeah. So you get high with him, and he's like, I have this to do. Maybe he gives you something more than weed. Maybe he laces your weed, or maybe he invites you to do something a little stronger, like ecstasy. And now you're all loopy. And then I say to you, hey, let's go to this party. There's, it'll be fun. And I open you up sexually, and now people are taking turns. If that happens to you, did anybody say yes? There was no verbalization of yes or no. It just happened. It's coercive. It happened because it was strategically taking you through, debilitating your boundaries, and getting you to that point where it's not rape, because you're 20, and you went consensually, and you came to the party and you started smoking, and then you wanted to have sex with all these people. Well, I didn't know it was going to be all those people. I just said I wanted to get high. You see how that works? And then I videotaped it. So I'll tell everybody. These are the weapons that are used to keep people ensnared. And these are happening to girls and boys. I want y'all to know that many boys are being engaged in all kinds of blackmail routines online that are keeping them involved in sexual exploitation and harming other people. And so through these methodologies. And lastly is evaluate the results. So after you get into the life, some people, I'm in here, I like this. Can you leave? Well, yeah, I can leave anytime I want. Has there ever been anything told to you that if you leave, someone will get harmed or you'll get harmed? Well, that's an indicator that this isn't a real choice. So again, these are the tools. This choice step, it's a choice test. It's 4 steps to help you evaluate so we can begin to really unpack what a yes means. Go to the next slide. So how does this intersect with choice and with sex work or exploitation? And I really dislike that word sex work, but that is becoming the new kind of label of what's going on. I don't believe that sex is work. I believe that is the way that we've been kind of referring to this. now, but again, work in my mind is involves an act of choice where people are empowered to provide for themselves out of a place of self-esteem, boundaries, and self-love. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Here we are, again, these predatory practices where we say at the top, we are liberated, we have agency, we have freedom. With this thing with SB 357, there's a whole agenda. There's a whole group of people that are saying, you know what, I want to have the sexual freedom to do whatever I want. I want to be able to have sex and not be looking over my shoulder at the police. We're two consenting adults. Are you? Are you two consenting adults? That's the question I keep asking. If I knew for sure you were two consenting adults, then I would get out of your business. Because, hey, that's what you choose to do. I'd get out of your way. But what I'm noticing is many of these scenarios where there's quote unquote two consenting adults, one of them has all the power and the other has none. One of them is being preyed upon because they want love or they want a job or they want safety or they're not mentally well. And they can't divide, they can't see that the person is manipulating them. And the other one, either the exploiter or the buyer, is getting all the benefits. And some people that are in this industry are renegades. Y'all know what renegades are? These are people that don't have a pimp. Renegades. Now, let me tell you, if you're a renegade, you're only going to be a renegade and walk the streets for so long because a pimp will come and snatch you up. There's no such thing as a long-term renegade on the street. You can be a renegade online. That's more feasible. But on the street, that's not going to happen. And when you're on the street and you're being exploited, what you can look forward to is this perception in your mind that you're going to make all this money. But when you look back, none of the money is yours. That's another very strong indicator that there's coercion in play. I always say to people, I find it very interesting in this industry that many of the people that say that this is what they want to be doing, I say, where's all your money at? Where's it at? Do you have houses? Because you're making like $1,500 a day. Do you have houses? Do you have cars? Do you have, all you have is a Gucci bag and some Louboutin shoes? And you make $1,500 a day. A Gucci bag is $3,000. That's 2 days. Where's all the rest of the money going? And I don't say it like that because that's not trauma-informed. But I ask these questions carefully and lovingly because I don't mean to judge. I want people to be reflective. Because at the end of the day, they're being sold a line that you a real one. You making all this real money. Girl, you so fine, you can make $10,000 a day. But they don't talk to you about the PTSD that's going to happen later because you're suppressing all of your emotions. I talked to a survivor recently, and she told me that every time that she was purchased when she was 16 years old in the city of San Francisco, she was purchased by someone, she would go out of her body, disassociate. And she had to do that to stay safe. And after a while now that she's older, I think she's in her 30s now, she says sometimes when she feels stress, she does that. Right? Natural stress, nothing to do with being exploited. At the job. You have a deadline. Boom. Where's she at? She's not there. Let me tell you about the disservice that does to you. Because if somebody doesn't know that you're a survivor of that kind of abuse, they go, come on, what's wrong with you? Let's go. I'm talking to you. We're under a deadline. Let's go. And you go, huh? Did you say something? And by the way, these episodes can take days and weeks and months. You can be in a daze, disassociated for days and weeks and months. Is that fair to them? That they were forced into this situation where their protective mechanism took them out of their mind and out of themselves, and now they literally flip in and out of themselves and somewhere else randomly without being able to control it. It makes it very hard to keep a job. It makes it very hard to be taken serious. It makes it very hard to provide for your family. I had a report recently. I got a call from San Mateo County, and they said, we have a girl here, and she was at the airport, and she had been getting sold in Oakland, in Hawaii, and in San Francisco, and I believe Arizona. So they were kind of sending her around in a circuit. And she said, the clinician that I was talking to, she said she went to go get on the plane, and she started just screaming, no words, at the top of her lungs. And when they got to her, the young lady had lost her hearing. She could not hear anymore. Trauma can cause you to lose voice. You can lose hearing. You can completely shut down as a person. So here she was going through the motions, but she didn't know that one day she would be getting on the airplane in SFO, and it would hit her. And then she was placed on a 30-day hold. That's how serious. She could not hear anymore. So these systems that prey on these individuals are so insidious. And again, I want to go back to this whole notion of, I want to respect. There was a lady who was a medical doctor that was living in Danville, and she told one of our staff members, I've left my medical doctor role, and now I'm a sex worker, and I love it. I said, awesome, do your thing, right? But I've been very clear, but please don't use your voice and your privilege to advocate for something that is tearing up a bunch of impoverished, vulnerable people. That's not fair. If you want to do that, do that. But recognize that most of the people that are ensnared in the sex industry are not there because they've chosen it. They're there because they don't have any other alternatives, and they have been coerced to be there, and they should be given exit services and other opportunities just like you had. So until you invest all that good medical doctor money into them getting into a better situation, hush. Sorry. So these are the challenges that we're dealing with. Thank you. Yay, we're together on that. And that is what's going on here. And you're going to hear a lot of the most vocal people on this topic are the ones. Check them out. Ask them, are you being sold on the street corner over here, off of a corner nearby? Are you? Or are you in the comfort of your home saying one or two people that you would date anyway? That's the real question. Because there's a big difference between a situation where you're sleeping with 9 to 21 people in the middle of the night, and you're 18 years old, and you're sleeping with people that smell, and people that are mean and nasty, that want to do all these strange things to you, and you just got to put up with it all night long. In Oakland, I was talking with a community member, and they said that the girls that are out there, they can't, now with this new bill, they have a higher quota, and there's more buyers. There's about 60 girls out there now, and there's buyers coming through like a McDonald's drive-through, and they don't even have a place to use the bathroom in between, so they're going in the alley to use the bathroom. And they don't have the ability. You might be thinking, oh, maybe they can take a shower. No, they don't take a shower in between. Can you imagine? I talked to one of our young ladies, and I asked her, how is that? She says, the smell. At the end of the day, the smell, Miss Vanessa. It's so disgusting. Imagine that. There's no dignity in that. There's no empowerment in that. There's just predatory practices that are preying on someone who's vulnerable and hurt. Next slide. So, again, I've kind of gone through this choice matrix, if you will, or choice test And I've just kind of summarized for you, people who are contemplating getting into the sex industry, they need to have, and many of you, I don't know if any of you have heard of Exodus Cry. We're partners with them. They're doing some amazing work in terms of shedding some light on the porn industry and how it leads to exploitation, buying sex. I urge you, if you're able, on the 12th of April, I'll be in San Francisco at a Regal Cinema Theater there on 4th Street. And then on the 13th of April, I'll be in Sacramento at a Regal Natoma. And we will be showing a documentary called Buying Her. And it's going to be all about the progression between, the connection between pornography and buying. Did y'all know there was a very strong connection there? Buyers often start with viewing pornography, and it starts to rewire their brains, and they start to need it more and more, and they get that dopamine hit, and their brain, the addiction sets in, and they go from watching it once a month to once a day to multiple times a day. And then when that hit isn't strong enough, I need a bigger hit, I'm going to go buy sex. So there's a progression that you will learn about from buyers. The whole movie documentary is actually from the perspective of multiple buyers giving their testimony about how they got involved and how they remain ensnared. And so here, I want people to have the opportunity to gather information about the industry. I want them to be able to contemplate. One of the things that they have a series, Exodus Cry, called Beyond Fantasy, that talks about how people that were in those porns, they never thought that they were going to be infected with any venereal diseases. And unfortunately, many of them end up being infected because the testing is not 100%. And so, and when they're infected, it's it. You're done. You're over. You're this whole big career that you thought you had is finished. Do they know that? Are they aware of these types of risks? Do they have the information that they need? Also, what are your alternatives? What if you're a GED holder or you have no high school diploma? What if you're here undocumented? What are the opportunities for you to actually gain income? I had a little girl that I encountered the other day in front of a Target. She was selling oranges. I walked up to her and I started talking to her, and I speak a little Spanglish. Don't ask me to do it here, but I do. I can do a little Spanglish. So I saw her and I went to her, and she's like this tall. And I said, I think this is a kid, but this might be one of my short sisters, so let me check. Okay, so I went over to her. She had a mask on, so I couldn't really see her facial features. So went over to her. I started talking to her. She started to tell me she was enrolled in high school. She was 15. It was 10:30 on a Friday morning. And I was like, oh, wow, are you in school? Where are you in school? She couldn't tell me where. I asked her where she was from. She told me, not from here. I asked her, how much her oranges were. It was $5 for a bag. And I said, are you here with anyone? She said, no, they just dropped me off in the morning. And she says, this is how I eat. If I don't sell these oranges, I don't eat today. Okay. So needless to say, we got some people involved, and now she's in our house. But it's all around us. And when someone like her has no alternative to eat, I'm so grateful because I didn't take her that day because she didn't want to come with me, agency. She said she didn't want to come, and she has the right. So she left with family members, right? She left. But a few weeks later, she called me and she said, now they want me to work at night. She didn't know what that meant. She said, they want me to work at night. Can you pick me up? And that's what changed the trajectory of her life. And so what I want you to understand is, if that person didn't have an alternative, she would have been working at night. and I don't know what would have happened with her. So these alternatives are important, the verbalizing of the choice. I love this. Some survivors were forced into human trafficking. Is a choice really a choice when it's based on limited information and available alternatives? This is the question. Go to the next slide. I want you to be aware of something that is called trauma bonding. This is the other aspect of coercion. When I told you about my student. When I met with my student, I'm totally A-type. You didn't know that, right? I'm like really quiet and no. I'm like, we're going to do this. You're getting out of that. This is what's going to happen, right? I was totally untrained about motivational interviewing and, trauma informed. I wasn't trauma informed at all. I was like one of those people. So, so I thought she was going to be done. And then it turns out I wasn't enough, guys. Turns out my love wasn't enough. And sometimes that's hard for us to accept. It's like, I'm giving you a bed, housing, counseling, love, support. What's going on here? You don't want to, what you mean you want to be with him? And it turns out there's this thing called trauma bonding, calculated targeting and recruitment. Learning to exploit a person's specific vulnerabilities, breaking down their agency and autonomy, using physical and psychological warfare with fear, punishment, and abandonment, this Stockholm syndrome thing, where you think that the only person that is harming you is the only person that can provide you the safety you need. It's crazy, but it happens with us. And this is something that takes a long time to unwind. As you're going through, I want you guys to become very familiar with stages of change. This is an important methodology that you need to become familiar. If you're going to get involved in this work, start understanding what it means to be pre-contemplative. That's where the exploiter is your daddy, your boyfriend, your husband, your number one, your day one. And then you go into contemplation where you're like, I'm not really sure they have my best interests at hand. And then you go into preparation where you start thinking about how you're going to get away. Then you go into action where you execute that plan, and then you maintain it. And sometimes you go all the way back to pre-contemplation. Anybody? It's frustrating. And as a side note, if you're doing this work, you better be doing self-care because it will stress you out. And so this is very, very important so you can be empathetic, so you understand. You know what? You needed to have a touch. You needed physical touch. You needed someone to tell you you were beautiful. So you went all the way back and you said, oh, he's daddy again. But we were all the way in a program. But he's the one I love. He's the only one who's ever going to be there for me. And so here we have this definition. Also, I want you to be aware, next slide, of something that is attachment. Anybody familiar with attachment theory? Very, very interesting. Study it. Look at this. This is so, I'm geeking out, y'all. I love this clinical stuff. So attachment theory was this model of attachment theory. There are 4 different types of attachment. One really insecure attachment or unhealthy attachment. There's insecure, avoidant, and chaotic. And then there's healthy or secure attachment. Secure attachment means when you were a baby, your parents gave you all the love and attachment and care you needed so that you could push away from them and you knew they were right there. And you could push away, and this develops up until the age of 3. They're right there. And if something hurts me, I know where to go back to. And I know how to get comforted. And there's something about being able to move away from your family of origin in that healthy way that empowers you to make better connections in your life. But when you are someone who you look back, you go, do, 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 do. You look back, no one there. Oh, where they at? Where they at? Where they at? Where they at? You develop something that's called insecure attachment. Or maybe you do that so long. Oh, where they at? Where they at? You go, they're never here. I don't want to be attached. That's avoidant. Or maybe you look for them and then you're kind of distrusting of them and you say, That's the chaotic. You're close, you're not close. You're close, you're not close. And so what I find is many of the women that I work with are insecurely attached. And they're very easy prey for someone who has a narcissistic profile, someone who means to prey upon them. Why? Because people who have insecure attachment, they need validation, constant. I want to be with you. I need to have you. Where you at? They need it like a baby needs milk. It's very easy to prey upon someone like that. Why do I mention this? I mention it because it informs whether it's coercion or choice. Does that make sense? Okay, next slide. So again, I want you to just be thinking about this. This is my thoughts on how we determine whether the industry is based on coercion or choice. I would say coercion. I would say the sex industry is inherently coercive and racist and misogynistic and every ism I can come up with. All right? I'm not a proponent. I'm not a fan. I haven't seen very many things that were liberating, and certainly as we take it into the context is, not what God would have for the people that he loves. Right? Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. That is not the plan of God, to give people PTSD. That is not what he has for us. Next slide. Well, we don't have time for questions, but hopefully I've sparked your thoughts about this topic. This hopefully is the beginning of a discussion. And I invite you, if you want to learn more about SB 357 or other bills. I talked about in last year's conference, I talked about SB 145, which made it legal for a 14-year-old to consent to sex with someone 10 years older than them. That went into law in 2022. And so 14 to 24, 15 to 25, 16 to 26, these laws are being passed. And we need your help to get more involved in protecting young people and protecting vulnerable people. I want to give you my last slide here, which gives some ways that you can stay connected to me. I would love to be in touch. And also, I would love to just invite you. If you're supporting survivors today and you feel like they could benefit from our IT Biz Tech Academy, our workforce development program, or perhaps housing, some of our housing programs, perhaps prayer. We would love to invite you to engage with us and be part of seeing someone today, noticing someone, and of course, loving them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. You guys don't probably know this, but it's incredible that she sacrificed this time to be with us today. They actually have their own gala, I don't know how to say it, going on tonight in Danville. And so she's taking the time to be with us, and so thankful. Thank you again, and God bless you. So I want to introduce you real quick to one more couple this morning. Well, technically not this morning. But just real quick, Stephen and Ellisa, will you come and be with us? They are co-founders of Hope Mountain Center. Stephen felt that God calling him to be a missionary in the Philippines several years before finishing his 32-year career as civil engineer in Merced County Department of Public Works. And they have founded Hope Mountain Center. And just as they kind of start off, we want you to kind of watch this little video from them, okay?
Hi, I'm Steve Rao.
And I'm Ellisa Rao.
We are missionaries based in the Philippines and co-founders of Hope Mountain Center. Hope Mountain Center is a safe refuge of hope, healing, and restoration for children, both boys and girls, rescued from online sexual exploitation and abuse. The key verse that guides the ministry of Hope Mountain Center is Mark 10:16. And Jesus took the children in his arms, placed his hands on them, and blessed them.
The mission of Hope Mountain Center is to transform the lives of children who are victim survivors of online sexual abuse and exploitation, empowering every child to move from helpless victim to thriving survivor.
There are several characteristics that make Hope Mountain Center unique from other facilities. The first is we accept both boys and girls. Brothers and sisters are able to live and heal together at the same facility. Hope Mountain Center is a family-style facility. A Christian Filipino married couple live in each home with the children. The children have both a positive male and female role model in their lives. All of the staff are trained in trauma-informed care. Because of the severity of their abuse, the children may have behaviors that are difficult for an untrained person. The training helps prepare the staff to respond in an appropriate manner.
Two of the children that reside at Hope Mountain Center are Ariel and Teddy. When they arrived, they were ages 6 and 7. Today, they are 8 and 9. Teddy was really struggling when he first arrived. He was very quiet, withdrawn, and hardly ever made any eye contact. Today, he's just full of energy, runs up to the car to greet us, and it's just got the most beautiful smile. Ariel is just now starting to open up about the abuse she experienced.
There are 2 aftercare homes at Hope Mountain Center. 10 children currently live in them, 6 boys and 4 girls. A 3rd aftercare home is under construction. We have capacity for 10 more children at Hope Mountain Center. As we accept more children, our costs will increase. More restoration partners are needed to help fund the operation of Hope Mountain Center, including staff salaries, utilities, food, medical care, education, program costs, transportation costs, and maintenance costs. Ellisa and I are volunteers. We don't use any of the funds received. All our costs, including transportation costs, are funded by my pension. You can find out how to become a restoration partner on our website, www.hope-mountain.org.
First, I'm just so thankful that we're able to be here and share about the ministry of Hope Mountain. It has become who we are for the last 5 years. And this video was made in July of last year. And so there's a few things that have changed since then. We said 10 children there. Now there are 18 children living at Hope Mountain. And the 3rd aftercare home is still under construction. We had some delays because of a major typhoon that came through. So I wanted you to see this picture. This is a view from Hope Mountain. It's a beautiful view, very peaceful. And let me just show the next slide, please. So this is what it said on the first in the video. Hope Mountain Center is a safe refuge of hope, healing, and restoration for children, both boys and girls, rescued from online sexual abuse and exploitation. Next slide. We added one more thing to the children that we serve. There were 2 years where rescues were not happening because of OSEC, and there were other children that were not officially victims of online sexual abuse that were not being served. So we added this to what we do. Hope Mountain Center also serves children that are victim survivors of other non-OSEC forms of sexual abuse, including rape and sexual molestation. So next slide. This shows some of the children standing at a place on the property of Hope Mountain that we call Prayer Point. It's a very peaceful location. It's a place where people can experience and feel God's presence when they're there. Next slide. So there are 18 children now, 6 boys and 12 girls. The ages are from 2 years old to 17 years old. Next slide.
Why did we get started? Is this working? Okay. Why did we get started? So in 2007, we were invited on a medical mission trip from our church. And from then, we fell in love with the Philippines and the Filipino people. But in 2016, our friend asked us to go up to Hope Mountain, which it wasn't called that then, and pray over the property. Their family owned the property and wanted it to be used for God's purposes. So we as a missions team went up there and prayed. Little did Steve and I know that we would be moving to the Philippines to do what we were praying about. So we prayed over what would be the use of this property, and God gave us the name Hope Mountain. Later, we met with some people who told us to contact International Justice Mission. So when we returned to the U.S., we went online. We got a Zoom call with International Justice Mission, and they said, there's something new going on in the Philippines, and we need you to know what's going on. And we said, okay. And they explained what online sexual abuse of children was and what it was happening in the Philippines. There were mothers or other family members were exploiting their children online with a foreign national on the other end of the internet. They were selling their children, having children act out whatever the person online told them to do. The children were as young as 2 months old. And this shocked us. We couldn't even believe it was true. So later that week, when I had my day off, I went online, I Googled it. It's true. There was an article in the local Cebu, Philippines newspaper online, and it said that there was a mother being sentenced for abusing her children online, and her children were ages 3 through 11. And I couldn't handle it. I just cried. I couldn't even stand up that day. And when Steve got home from work, I said, we need to do something. And he agreed. So we started the nonprofit process, and we moved ourselves to the Philippines in November 2017.
Okay, so in 2017, it actually took us 2 years to then get a license to operate and to build the first 2 aftercare homes and then accept the first children. So next slide. This is a little aerial view that was not too old. That was taken, a few weeks ago. And it shows the existing 2 aftercare homes and the 3rd aftercare home. The 3rd aftercare home, if you were to look at it today, is nearing completion. It would actually be complete probably in May. Each home has the capacity for 10 children. That's what we're planning. But in reality, the home with the girls has 13 children, and the home with the boys has 5. What's hard is rescues are still going on in the Philippines. The day before yesterday, we were contacted by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. They said, we have a sibling group of 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy that we want to refer to you. And so me and my social worker, we tried to come up with creative ideas of how can we take these children, and ultimately...
I shut them down.
Yeah, basically...
So, we couldn't take more girls right now. We just can't. So their ideas were, let's try to make the study area into this place where we can have the children. sleeping. It's like, well, then all of the adult supervision is upstairs. And so it just really wasn't logistically going to work out.
So anyway, that's what's hard is when you have to turn down referrals. We just need more facility. And the third aftercare home will help us expand our facilities, but not right away, because we're going to be using that as what we're calling an interim healing center, where all the uses that we need to actually care for the children will be temporarily in the third aftercare home, like counseling room, a library, meeting rooms, offices for our counselors, and a
life skills
training room. And so we're going to temporarily use the third aftercare home as a healing center where the programs that we have that are caring for the children can all be in that healing center. Because right now we're trying to do those functions in the two homes, and it's a little crazy. And it's just not optimal at all. So hopefully, if you start following us, our Facebook page, in a few, maybe in a month or so, you will see where we will start a fundraising program to start raising money for the development of a real multi-purpose building where we can have a real healing center so that we can eventually have the third aftercare home accept children. Which is very much needed in the Philippines. I wish I could tell you more about some of the children. Today is actually one of the children's birthdays. She's turning 15 today. She is a very sweet girl. We can't show you their faces or tell you their real names, but today is her birthday. And we made a video for her last night, and we sent it to her because we don't live at the facility. We actually live about an hour away because we're not there to Americanize the children. So everything there, all the staff that are there are all Filipino, so that it's a culturally appropriate setting. Our job is to make sure that the facility has everything it needs to operate. But we do, every Saturday, we get to go up there. What do we do on Saturdays?
So we do projects with the children. So that could be a cooking project or a craft project or games. So we had a missions team there 2 weeks ago, and we did a paper airplane contest, the second annual paper airplane contest. And we had a lot of fun. And each of the missionaries were mentoring some children. We had some very strange-looking airplanes, but it was a lot of fun.
So our theme for this year is the joy of the Lord is your strength. The children that live up there, they have to learn what it is to have joy. They have very complex trauma. Many of them have very low self-worth. Many of them have a hard time thinking about, what am I going to be in the future? If you ask them the question, what do you want to be in the future? They don't even know how to answer that. They can't even think of the future. So one of the things that the exercises I like to do with the children is I try to daydream different things that I see that they could be in the future, because I need them to start thinking about what can I be in the future, because they need to see that. Because it gives them a target of something that is an important part of their healing and restoration. It's really an important part. These children, their trauma is so complex that our staff, we have to make sure that they have ongoing counseling because they experience some very tough things. There's a lot of there's a lot of behaviors that the children have that are very difficult to deal with. And sometimes it takes our staff to the edge. And we're just lucky that we love on our staff, make sure that they know that they're cared for. We pay them an appropriate salary, and they want to stay. Because if they didn't want to stay, and if they had to deal with the things that they have to deal with, they would be gone. So it's important that we are caring for our staff and praying for our staff. So go to the next slide. So what's next at Hope Mountain? We'll obviously continue to care for the children. We'll continue to train our staff. Our staff are all trained in trauma-informed care by other NGOs that exist in the Philippines. We will complete construction of the 3rd aftercare home soon. We will design, raise money, and construct the Healing Center, the first multi-purpose building. Hopefully, construction would probably start in 2024. We will develop more partnerships. Without partnerships, we couldn't do what we do. We have partnerships with other NGOs that provide free counseling, partnerships that provide training, and we will welcome more children at Hope Mountain when we're able to. So next slide. Things that you can do to help. Number 1 is pray. Pray is an offensive, it's not offensive, it's the offense, right? We need to be on the offense against the adversary. So, and prayer is so helpful. You can't imagine how important that's why it's always number 1 on the list. Pray for the children at Hope Mountain. Pray for our staff. Pray for us. And donate. Become a restoration partner. Go to our website. Find out what it is to become a restoration partner, and make that decision to contribute either once or every month. That really is going to help us to continue to operate and expand our facilities. And share with others. Pick up some brochures in back. We have some t-shirts there that you can wear. That's a good way to share with others too. And learn more. Follow our Facebook page. How it's important to, if you follow our Facebook page, which is Hope Mountain Foundation, it helps when the more followers we have, the more people actually see information about Hope Mountain. So take on your Facebook page and look up Hope Mountain Foundation and follow Hope Mountain Foundation. And then learn more at our website. Next, is that the last slide? There we go. That was the last slide. So we're just so thankful to be here. And we will be in the back, and we will answer any questions that anyone has. And I love hard questions. They're the best.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve and Ellisa. We appreciate you guys. All right, so I am so thrilled to have this opportunity to have Without Permission with us. Like I said before lunch, we have been waiting for this chance to have them at our Intercept Summit. Last year we had the founder, Debbie, speak to us, and it was amazing. And we thought, you know what, let's do it. Since 2010, let me just tell you a little background about Without Permission. Since 2010, Without Permission has been working to end sex trafficking through prevention, justice, and restoration. Beginning as a 2-person ministry and growing into over 50 strong, Without Permission has developed roles for staff and volunteers to serve city and survivor. Through partnerships and task force relationships in local counties, Without Permission has created a local response to the evil of sex trafficking and exploitation. Without Permission's promise is to restore the victimized, educate our youth, and to prevent exploitation, and to attack the lies that drive demand. We're going to kick this off with a short video, then I'm going to ask the wonderful people on this team to introduce themselves. So let's watch this together.
I was 15 when I was recruited for sex trafficking.
I want to say I was about 17 years old.
I was 15.
I was 17 years old.
Tell me what you thought about your trafficker when you first met him.
It was actually not a him. It was a her, and I felt that person was a friend. I met him through Snapchat. I just, I would watch his stories, whatever. He would watch my stories, and he ended up swiping up on my stories. We started talking, and that's when everything started.
After I met my friend, a friend, she kind of led me on down this path that kind of just put everything out of control. And at that time, I believed of her as like a big sister. Like I trusted her a lot with everything. And she betrayed me, you know?
They teach you not to trust anybody. They teach you, police are not there to help you. They're the enemies. They teach you, not to talk to your friends because they won't understand you and they're not gonna want to be your friend once they know what you're doing. They're not gonna wanna help you. You can't trust them. The only person you can trust is the trafficker.
And out of 19 years, I still feel the brokenness and pain in my body from the violence every day.
I still have nightmares sometimes. I would think of my trafficker just as a manipulator, someone that's very evil, selfish, I don't know, a sociopath, most definitely. I see him now, just a liar, someone that likes to mess with your mind to get, to benefit himself.
I felt like things aren't over with him, even though that's how I wanted it to be.
Do you feel safe?
No, I do not.
My experience without permission, I would say you guys were basically like my life jacket.
I was always being used for something and they didn't want to use me at all. They wanted to help me and they didn't want anything in return. And that's something that I really took to heart and appreciated.
I've just been able to heal. I've been able to understand more. And they've just helped to empower me and support me.
Now I'm able to be confident and have a smile on my face and be happy because I know that I am strong, and Without Permission has taught me that.
Without Permission helped me know that I was a victim, an innocent victim that was targeted by people who knew what they were doing. What happened to me doesn't define me. I learned that I can take my story and show the world that you can go through all this stuff and come out the other side bright, shiny, and new.
When you're trying to change and you want it so bad, it's easy to fall back and get sucked back up into that lifestyle. It's really easy, and it's a hard battle that you have to have with yourself. You guys have done everything in your power to make sure that I grew from this experience and I was able to, come out and not be a statistic of going back into the life, and I was able to make myself into the woman that God knows I could be.
Afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon. Everybody just take a deep breath. Are your bellies full from lunch? You're fed, you're happy. That food was amazing. Thank you to whoever catered and hosted that. Thank you so much. And thank you, just want to thank Pastor John and the whole team here for having us. It's such an honor to be invited back again this year. My name's Samantha. I'm the Director of Operations at Without Permission, and this is some of our Without Permission team. I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves in just a couple minutes, but our mission is to end sex trafficking through prevention, justice, and restoration. Our vision statement is that we want to lead the church and the community into the battle that will end sex trafficking. So some of our team is up here. We just kind of want to give you a little bit of, you heard this morning, internationally, the work that is being done to end sex trafficking globally, which is incredible. And so we just kind of want to hone it in and bring it home a little bit more for you this morning, for you to hear about some of the work that we're doing, give you some on-ramps, maybe something stirring in your heart this morning that you want to become a little bit more involved, or like, what can I go home and do? What can I put my time, talents, treasures towards to help this cause? So why don't we just go on down the line, introduce yourself, maybe your role at Without Permission, and why you got involved with the work that we're doing.
Sounds good. My name's Logan Johnson. I am the EPIK coordinator for our men's movement. 13 years ago, my family started this organization, and just as of recently, just had an opportunity to step into a position to where I could be of use and helping to end demand.
Hi, my name is Sonna Gilmour, and I am the program manager at Without Permission. I have been at Without Permission for almost 7 years, and what brought me to Without Permission is I had been hearing about trafficking globally and domestically, and I just started looking into it. I actually started looking for jobs on the Without Permission website several years before I actually was hired, and God just moved in me over a period of time so that when an opening came, I was like, Lord, I know that this is where you have me. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Michell Camacho, and I am the probation site navigator for Without Permission. And I've also been here Without Permission for almost 7 years. And what brought me here is I am also a survivor leader, and I just really, my hopes is just to really be able to give the survivors Jesus.
My name is Brianne Hoak-Rangel. I'm the Director of Programming for our day facility and our restoration department. I've been in social work for over 15 years, working in a variety of different ministries and organizations, and I was ready to take the next step to specifically minister to and delve a little bit deeper into sex trafficking, and that's when I became a part of Without Permission.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so some of the rest of our team is here as well, so hopefully we'll get a chance to meet you out at our booth in the lobby afterwards. But we are 100% focused on sex trafficking and exploitation. That is our lane. So we really try to stay within our lane. We've been around for 13 years, like you said, so we've served over 840 survivors to date over those 13 years, and 100% of them are victims of sex trafficking or sexual exploitation. 100% of them, 9 out of 10 of them call this Central Valley home, Stanislaus, San Joaquin County home. So, these are our kids in our schools, our backyards, our neighborhoods. That is the basis of the work that we do. This is obviously a worldwide crisis, but what's happening right here in our neighborhoods, what's happening in Ceres, what's happening in Turlock, in Modesto, Salida, Manteca, Stockton, that affects us. So that's really the conversation we want to lend an ear to this morning. And these guys all work in our restoration department. So I just kind of want to give them a little bit of an opportunity. We have you'll hear a little bit later about some of the other work that we do, but we have an entire restoration department that works directly with our survivors. So one-on-one with clients, in group settings with clients. We actually have an off-site, it's an undisclosed location, but it's a day facility where our clients can come and receive program. They can receive counseling and mentoring and cooking classes and basic life skills, and really just help them meet their goals wherever they're at within that. So all these guys work at that facility and then some. So could you just kind of give us, maybe just for people that are a little more unfamiliar to the issue of sex trafficking in general, like what is the typical story of somebody that you work with, a survivor that you work with? What is their story?
So, you might think, if we just asked you right now, what do you think the story would be? And you'd think maybe broken home, poverty, gangs, and you'd be right. But that's not the whole story, because we've served several clients that come from two-parent homes, from churched homes, because we all have a vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And the thing that traffickers and people that are trying to exploit young people do is they're really good at figuring out what your vulnerability is and exploiting it. So yes, a majority of the young people that we work with come from brokenness in some way or another. And some ways that you can see: gangs, drugs, broken families, foster system. But I really want you to know that that's not the only answer, because one of the things that we want you to take away with today is how can you protect your kids? How can you protect your grandchildren? How can you protect your nieces and nephews from this happening to them? So it's a variety. There's a variety of stories. And we just really want you to understand that if there's a vulnerability, a trafficker can find it.
One of the things that our founder, Debbie Johnson, she always tells us, every client that comes in, is that every story is unique. Everyone is like our first case. Because though there are similarities in stories, everyone is so different. Because just like everyone in this room, we all have our own story. We all have our own background. We all have unique things about our lives and ways that brought us to where we're at. We've all had moments of brokenness and all moments of vulnerability. So anyone in this room could have been somebody who had been trafficked. There are people in this room that probably have been trafficked and exploited because there is no certain type. The National Center for Exploited and Missing Children just put out a training this year that I attended that talked about the 4 ways in 2023 that people are being exploited and trafficked. So just quickly to run over those, one of them is familial. It's people in their own family, whether it be their aunts, their uncles, their moms, their dads. And that might seem like kind of a shocking thing, and it is, and it is a difficult concept to wrap your mind around, but sometimes some of those things, when you break down what that story really looks like, they're more understandable. Maybe it's a mom who's trying to pay rent for 4 of her children, and the teenage daughter wants to help her family, and that's how that daughter gets involved in trafficking. It's not always black and white. It's not always so easy to understand. It's very easy from the outside to judge somebody and how they got involved in that or what that really looked like, but it's not always so easy. There is, like was mentioned, with gang-related, that's often led through like the fear and the violence. There's also buyer-perpetrated. That's another top way that people are getting trafficked right now. So what that looks like is you have a young person who doesn't have shelter, they don't have food, they don't have their basic needs met, and somebody comes and says, you can come stay with me for a week, and in exchange, we'll do a sex act. That person has lived on the streets for a month, they're cold, it's flooding, they haven't had food, and now they've got food and shelter. So anything that they have, they can do a sex act in exchange for anything of value, and that looks different to everybody. What's of value to us is different. What might be of value to her is different than what's value to me, but if it's a need that you need to meet, and you can do a sex act to get it, sometimes that's how that journey starts for them. And then, a trafficker that's a stranger, obviously would be the 4th way, and I'm sure you've heard a little bit about that today. So I just wanted to emphasize that every single story looks different. Every single person that walks into our room or walks into our day facility or begins services with us, whether it be through the crisis line, we have a 24-hour crisis line, or through the community, or through a family member that comes to us and says, I'm concerned about this person, or they might need your services. We always say, call. Let us talk to them. Let us work with them. And everyone is going to be treated like it was the first case, because we never know what that background looks like or what those gray areas might be, and never with any judgment, because nobody knows what anybody else has been through.
Brianne, could you talk about, in one of the trainings that we did, you gave an example of kind of how the crime starts and how, they don't just, people might ask the question like, well, why did they choose to do that? Why didn't they just say no? Why didn't they just tell a parent or whatever? And you gave that example of how it starts really targeted and innocently with, just send me some pictures of you dancing, not even naked or whatever. But could you just kind of expand on that a little bit, just to give people an understanding?
Yeah, so again, like if we go back to that family with the, mom with the 4 kids, and she's already, trafficking herself just to try to pay that rent, because to raise 4 children by yourself as a single mom, I don't know about for any of you, but just trying to pay my own bills and pay my own rent is a challenge enough, and I don't even have children. So it's a challenge, and that looks different for everybody. But one thing that we talk about is when you love somebody, when you care about somebody, whether it be a husband, a daughter, a son, whoever's in your life that you care about, you will do anything you can to help them meet a need. If somebody is hungry and it's your friend or your daughter or your husband, you're going to try to help them find food because you love them, because you care about them. And so it's not actually that far of a stretch of your imagination to think about that 14, 15-year-old daughter who sees her mom struggling every single day and sees her 3 siblings not being able to eat, and they don't have food, and they haven't had food, and she's maybe stealing food from the school cafeteria to try to help her siblings eat. She's getting into fights to try to steal stuff. She might have gotten in trouble for stealing food from the grocery store because she's trying to help her family eat. It's not that far of a stretch to say, well, my mom's doing it. What can I do to help my family because I love them, because I care about them? You don't know what that situation is like until you're in it. We do have a lot of our clients, that get trafficked through social media. I don't know if you guys have heard, a lot about that today, but that's a big hot spot. And again, you've got these teens, these young adults, these young kids that are on some type of social media site. And everybody in this room, and I feel confident to say as a blanket statement, everybody in this room wants to feel like we belong. We all want to feel like we're accepted. And especially when you're in those really young, vulnerable ages, you're looking for that. You're looking for that connection. And so whether it be any background that you're in, a family of wealth, a family who's poor, it doesn't matter. We're all looking for that. And so when you have somebody that reaches out to you and says, you're beautiful, you're wanted, you belong with me, I love you, whatever that case might be, now all of a sudden you belong. You are accepted by that person. And for that trafficker, they just made their way into the door. It's not as far-fetched as we might imagine. I can tell you on our 24-hour crisis lines, we're getting calls every single week, multiple times a week, from people right here in Modesto, in Turlock, in Waterford, in Ripon, in all of these areas, every single week, people calling in that this is happening to on a regular basis.
Thank you. Could you just give a little bit of an example of where some of our referrals come from, like the breadth of our client base?
Yeah, so some of our referrals, they come, like Brianne was saying, they come from many different places. They come from our community through CPS. We work closely with CPS. Through probation, we work closely with them as well. They come from there when, a youth is getting booked and they just show signs of like exploitation or they have questions or whatever, then they send the referral to us. And CPS right now, every youth that is in foster care is mandated to be assessed to be assessed with the assessment tool, see it tool. And and they just come in from, like I said, like through our hospitals, through law enforcement. They come in through, like Brianne was saying as well, just through parents. They'll call the crisis line. They come in from anywhere and everywhere. That's why it's really important that we emphasize that we do have a 24-hour crisis line that's available to the community, to survivors, and law enforcement.
Could you guys expand a little bit? You had said something in the beginning about the definition of a commercial sex act within the realm of trafficking is anything of value in exchange for a sex act. So can you just maybe highlight some of the similarities or differences when you hear us throw out the terms trafficking or exploitation, what some of the similarities or differences are in those?
Sometimes it's nice to just have a little bit of a foundation. I'm going to go back to some of the things I just spoken about as far as some of our recent cases of the people that we're dealing with. When we're talking about being exploited, we're going back to somebody who doesn't have housing. I'm going to hit on housing because housing is a huge need here. We have a lot of our youth and young people that don't have anywhere to live, and that is a huge issue. There's not a lot of housing available here. We partner with anybody and everybody that lets us know they have a bed. Great, because we will look to fill that bed. Housing is a huge problem. And so an exploitation is anybody coming to you and exploiting you for that thing that you need, whether it be the food or the bed or the safety or the housing. Those types of basic needs are how you view safety for yourself. And most of the people we work with are in unsafe situations. If you don't have anywhere to sleep, you're not safe. I don't know about anybody that's been in here that's spent a night out on the streets here, but it's scary. It's not a safe place to be. And when we're not feeling safe, then we're gonna do whatever we can to try to feel safe. It's a basic need within us to try to feel safe. And so that's that exploitation. Oftentimes being exploited in that way is gonna be an open door to being trafficked continuously on a regular basis by strangers, by people that you know, in those different ways that I had talked about.
I had mentioned we have an off-site day facility. This is basically a safe haven for our survivors to come to. It's called Justice House. It's a play on words called Just His House. And that is open Monday through Friday to our survivors. Could you guys just talk a little bit about what program looks like there, what a survivor could expect when they come, how we're caring for them there?
Excuse me. So we actually work with any potential survivor in two different ways. One is, first of all, we introduce them to certified navigators. And we actually have some certified navigators in the room right now because some of the ladies from your church are certified navigators. And so we assign them to a certified navigator. The certified navigator would reach out to them. They're going to try and establish a relationship with them. They're going to give them some information. They give them a bag of compassion, and they go through an educational packet to kind of tell them what is trafficking, what is exploitation, is this happening to you? When they say, yes, this is happening to me, then we say, would you like to work without permission? And if they say yes, then they'll schedule another appointment to meet with that potential client. And then from there, they will develop a relationship. And it's a mentor-like relationship. They are trying to just establish that relationship, that trusting, safe relationship, that youth knows that they're going to be consistent, they're going to keep their word, they're going to be safe, they're going to be healthy. And then over a period of time, the certified navigators will make an assessment. Is this person a good fit for Justice House, which is our day facility that Sam was mentioning? At the day facility, they would be introduced to the day facility. They would come, and we do a curriculum called Seeking Safety, which teaches about safe coping skills, healthy, safe relationships, and a lot more. We do, Sam mentioned we do a cooking class on Thursday. That is probably our most popular day because everybody wants to eat. And then we just do other things. If we have a guest that is wanting to find a job, we'll sit and do some job skills training with them. Or if they're wanting to open a bank account, we'll go and take them and walk them through the steps. So it's about relationship building. But also there's counseling that's available. If a certified navigator works with a survivor and they're kind of maybe not so safe, maybe they're not really focused on their healing, they would not be introduced to Justice House. Or if they're over 24 years old, because people over 24 years old, they have different needs than some of these 12 to 24-year-olds that we're dealing with mostly on a regular basis. But we will still meet with them off-site. We will meet with them at the Family Justice Center. We might meet with them at Starbucks. It's all about relationship building. Mm-hmm. It's all about being that consistent person in their life that is saying, you know, God has a plan for you, God has a purpose for you, and you can find health and healing when you start taking these steps and start taking care of yourself and learning what you need to learn to not get back in that same situation again. So just kind of an overview. One other thing we do is we do a monthly guest outing. Last month, I think we went to Pottery Magic and made ceramics. And that is to teach the girls about friendship with each other, because they do develop friendships with each other as well. But it's also learning about what's the difference between unhealthy fun, which would be meeting up with strangers that you just met on Facebook and meeting at a hotel and drinking all night. That's their idea of fun sometimes, versus let's go to Pottery Magic and bring some snacks and play a game and make ceramics and laugh and have fun. We're trying to teach them to break out of some of the things that maybe their culture has taught them. And what are some new ways that you can interact with your friends that are healthy and that are safe and that are not going to get you drunk and waking up the next morning and not knowing what happened to you? So it's teaching that healthy fun. And we do a variety of other things too, but that's kind of an overview.
Could you guys, go ahead. Did you have something?
Can I just add something else? Also within our day facility, we also serve the boys at our day facility at the Justice House, and we serve them on Fridays, and we have an amazing male site navigator, Matt, and he teaches them how to change the oil, how to cook, how to, do the same things as far as resume building and job searching and things like that. So I did want to throw that out there because we need male navigators. So I'm recruiting right now. Go sign up.
Can you guys just share a couple of success stories from survivors that you've worked with?
Yes. So when you asked me about this earlier, I had one in particular which I really we're just so proud of her. We've been working with her since she was 13 years old. We met her during campus education at one of her junior highs, and we've been working with her since. She's now 19 years old. She got into some trouble. She went into juvenile hall. She got caught a couple of felonies, and we just been really working with her since then. She thought her whole life was just done, you know? And so our team has just, like our navigators just went in, just started loving on her, encouraging her the whole time that she had been in juvenile hall. When she got out, we continued to work with her, helped her get back into school, helped her get jobs, things like that. And she never thought that she would be off probation because she was facing some, like, prison time. Like 2 weeks ago, she calls me and she is totally and completely off probation. And her life is just, you know, like going up instead of down now. And she was just very grateful and thankful just to be in the place that she's at right now, because she saw no value in herself. She didn't feel like there was any hope. She thought that her life was just going to end up like she was going to continue to go that route and end up in prison. But as we continue to work with her and love on her and just let her know, like, this is not your value. This is not who you are. This is not, you know, who, you know, God has created you to be, and just walked her through life with a bunch of navigators. It wasn't just one or two. It was just a bunch of us together just loving on her, because it takes a village, right? And she's at a really good place now, and she's like out of trouble. She has a job. She could not believe that she was off probation. And like, that was a huge success story. So that's that one.
That's awesome.
I'll share one too. So we talked about that a lot of our youth most of our youth come from Stanislaus County. This was a young woman. She was 28 years old, and she actually wasn't from the area at all. She had received help from another local nonprofit, and I met her through that nonprofit, and she just randomly asked me, well, you know, where do you work? And I told her, and she said, I need to talk to you after. And so we were able to talk, and she said, I just ran away from my pimp, and that's why I'm here, but I would like to receive services from without permission. Like, I need to heal from my trafficking experience. So we were able to work with her. We actually were able to provide her housing for a little over a year. And during that time, she decided she wanted to become a CNA. So she applied for a CNA. It was where you train on the job. And so she was able to do that. Through this whole time, she had a child, and that was why she decided that she finally had to get out, and why she ended up coming to Modesto. Another navigator and I were able to be her birthing partner and be there for her when she had her baby. And she knew when that baby was born, she had to make a change, and that's when she decided to do the CNA program. And our certified navigators were able to walk alongside her through that, and we have amazing navigators. They would go and pick her up from Oakdale, her and her son. They would drive her to her program, and then they would drive her son to daycare because she didn't have a car and she couldn't drive. And so she was able to finish the program and ended up moving out of the area, but got a job working as a CNA, and she has been gone from Modesto for a few years now, but she occasionally checks in. And she is a grown woman who is making healthy choices, who is taking care of her child, who is working. And that is one of the stories that makes me a little emotional every time I tell it, because we fell in love with this woman. We fell in love with her child. And we're so glad that she developed a relationship with the Lord, and she allowed him to make those changes in her life, and she just started following a different path, changed the whole trajectory of her life and her child's life.
And some of these things that we're talking about, that's why we do what we do, and the volunteers that work with us and the navigators that work with us, these are this is the hope. This is the hope that's at the end of that difficult journey, that's at the end of that difficult road. And there's never going to be a point for any of our survivors where this is over. Like, oh, well, I overcame that, moving on with my life. That's not the way it works. It's going to continue to be a journey, but it is a blessing to be able to be a part of anyone's journey, overcoming any kind of trauma. And so, just in the last year, we've had the privilege of watching some of these survivors who never went to high school getting their high school degree. We had one that just got their college degree. We've had a couple that we've had the honor of, being with them when they have their, children. These are survivors that didn't think they were going to live past the age of 13, 14. They're surprised when they get to 18. They're 21 and telling us, oh my gosh, I honestly just can't believe I'm still alive. And then to see them, now having children, now getting these jobs. One of our boys, we're so proud of him. He's going to be a dad. He just got a job. One of our male site navigator taught him how to do the resume. These different things, these different steps that they're taking in their lives to be successful. Like, that's why we do what we do. When people come to volunteer with us, that's the hope we want to give any of you who come to work with us, is it does make a difference. And it's sometimes sitting there and just talking with someone or just sitting next to them while they cry or while they're working through it, it doesn't feel like you're doing something big, but it is big. It's big. If you think back on your own life, anybody that invested in you, anybody that spent 30 minutes with you or an hour with you and just listened when you were down and you really needed somebody, you don't forget that. It makes an impact. So when anybody wants to come and work with us, that's what we're doing. Like, that's the hope. That's the reason we're doing what we're doing. So when you hear these, like, anybody, any of you could be part of that journey. Like, that's why we do. That's why we're sitting here. That's why we do what we do too.
We talk a lot as a team about just the privilege that it is to be a part of people changing their legacy. Like, some of these are generationally, they've been trafficked from grandfather to dad to son. And so just the privilege that it is to get to watch them make different choices for their future and their families. And what an honor that is to get to be a part. I'm so excited that you got to hear from Detective Cooper this morning, because over the last stretch of years, we've worked really hard to develop our relationship with law enforcement. One of the things that we say in every training we go to and whatever is that we are not the ones that go bust down doors and rescue people out. We leave that to the experts. We work really closely with law enforcement. We've had the privilege of being invited out on a couple of sting operations, but we hope to be like the first call that they make when they do get a rescue, so that we can be the ones that come in and respond as the experts in the human trafficking field. So Michelle's our probation site navigator. She works in juvenile hall with a lot of the kids in there. So could you just talk a little bit about what services look like to kids in juvenile hall?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say it is a privilege and an honor to go into juvenile hall. It is a war zone, too. I just want to put that out there. But it is so rewarding. So what we do, my team and I, is when we go into juvenile hall, basically what we do is once we assess them with the See It tool, if they have come up to be a clear concern or a possible concern, meaning that they have been exploited in some way or could be exploited in some way, then we ask them if they're willing to work with us. And if they do say, yeah, they're willing to work with us, then we come in and we just see them weekly, and we do like a mentoring process. We offer Seeking Safety. I am able to go into the girls unit once a week and teach them safe coping skills, how to ground whenever they deal with PTSD or anger, any type of bad behavior, trying to change that and show them that there's tools that how they can overcome and change their behavior and change whatever's going on inside of them. And we are also able to, like I said, meet with them once a week. We have our male navigators that go in and meet with the boys and just love on them, able to pray for them, able just to talk to them and just to give them encouragement, because they don't have too much encouragement when they're behind their cells or when they're locked up or whenever they're getting in fights. But just to really pour into them and just let them know, like one thing I do constantly with the young men and women in there is I always tell them that I'm proud of them. And they look at me like, how can you be proud of me? And I'm like, I am proud of you because you're still here, because you're still breathing. And so we just are able to love on them and let them know that, hey, you know what? Whatever has happened to you as far as the exploitation and the trafficking piece is not your fault, but you can overcome this. And we're able to give them tools of how they can. And then when they get out of custody, then we're able to, again, walk with them and give them more resources because they're out of custody. And now we're able to introduce them them to other navigators that can come around them and love them as well, because again, it takes a village, it takes a team. So we are able to offer the same resources, but even more.
A lot of times when people think of sex trafficking, they think of it as something that's only happening to young girls or to little girls. And as you heard about a little bit today, that's not the case. It's estimated that over 20% of victims are actually male boys, little boys. And so the youngest survivor that we've served has been an 11-year-old boy. And one thing that we like to just kind of put into perspective with everyone is that our boys are actually like more targeted and more vulnerable, because they're targeted to not only they're targeted to be pimps, so they're groomed and raised and grown to be pimps. They're targeted to be purchasers, so culture says, go blow off some steam, go make this appointment, go whatever. So they're targeted to be pimps, purchasers, and they're targeted as victims as well. So if you just think about the threats that are coming against our boys, that's something that we've really tried to put a lot of effort in, especially over the last couple of years as it's come to more awareness of us, as we've received more boy clients. That's something we've put a lot of emphasis on. So, I mean, Michelle, I know that inside and outside of the hall, you work with boys as well. Could you just talk a little bit about our boys program, some of the vision for that moving forward, services that we offer and stuff like that?
Yeah, so the boys program, I gotta tell you, I'm really passionate about it, because again, like Sam said, they really get overlooked in this area, in this situation. But within the boys program, in hopes that, you know, we have Matt, which I'm so blessed by him now that he has come on board. We have Matt, and you know, we would like to see just programs as far as teaching them, like I said, how to change the oil, teaching them how to work on cars, teaching them how to, you know, work on the yard, teaching them that they can be successful and provide for their families, and just really teaching them their value and who they are, because of the fact that, you know, again, like Sam said, some of them are taught to, this is the life that you have to live, especially in the gangs, is to be a pimp. And training them a different way to say, hey, you know what, this is not who you are or who you have to be. You know, like, there's other ways to make money. There's legit, healthy ways to make money. And just really being there for them, loving on them. Again, that's why the male navigators are gonna be like crucial to come in to give them such a healthy male perspective on how to be and how to grow and how to love and how to respect women, right? As well as respect themselves. So please sign up.
I just wanted to add just a little bit to what Michelle was saying too, because there is sometimes also just a societal view over males in general, that males have to act a certain way, or they have to be a certain way, or they're not allowed to show their emotions, or they have to be strong, or they can't XYZ. And so, you know, some of the nationwide surveys that have taken place over the last several years are showing that that is actually an extra vulnerability for males in our society, because they are not protected the same, they're not viewed the same, and when these types of traumas do take place, they're not allowed to show that weakness or talk about that they have had a sexual trauma or that they have been trafficked in that certain way, because it's viewed as a weakness in our society. And so that is actually an extra vulnerability, and another way that we can work with them and say, hey, it's okay. It's okay for you to show your feelings. It's okay to feel sad about this. And we're sorry that happened to you, because it shouldn't have happened in the first place. But sometimes because of that societal view, it makes it harder for them to share that experience and to receive the support that they need, because again, there's just kind of almost a recent awareness in the last decade or two that this was even so prominent with the males. And so, you know, there's a fear from the boys that people aren't going to believe me. They're not going to think that this is true. They're not going to think this could have happened to me. And so it makes it harder to share. And so those are some of the additional difficulties we have when we're working with the boys, is to provide that safe place for them where we believe you. We believe you. Just that first step is harder even for the boys than it is for the girls. That it's okay. This is a safe place for you to be. It's a safe place for you to share. And we try to do that for all of our clients, is provide. That's the number one thing. When they come into the day facility, that's my number one goal, is I want every single survivor, male or female, that comes through that door, that this is a safe place, because they have not felt safe. And for some of them, they haven't felt safe for 5, 10, 15 years. So that is like a number one goal.
Can I say one real quick thing about that too? Michelle was talking, she was encouraging you men to really think and pray about if this is somewhere where the Lord would have you. Because we've been to trainings and we've heard from organizations around the United States. And when we just went to a training a few months ago, and they had organizations raise their hand if they work with boys, and there was hardly any. So the fact that Stanislaus County, without permission, is seeing a need to work with boys, and we have been working with them for a while, but hiring a male site navigator and making a push to be able to work with boys more is such a heavy need in our county, and we need men, because Michelle has been working with these boys for a while, but they need a man. Yeah. They need a man to show them what it looks like to be a man, and what it means to be a man of God, because we're a faith-based organization and it's about Jesus. So we need the church, we need the men in the church to come alongside these boys and mentor them.
Just to emphasize that need, just last week, they put out and they showed of the sex trafficking specific organizations we have across the country, okay, which are not very many that are sex trafficking specific, 13% are willing to look at working with boys. 13%. So when we have boys, where are they supposed to go? Where are they supposed to go? 13% in our entire country. So when Sonna says, like, I'm proud, honestly, I'm proud to work for Without Permission, that we are 13% of the country. And what an honor for anybody here that can join in and be part of that. It's a huge statistic. It's a huge, huge need.
We could sit up here literally for another 2 hours, because there's just so much, like the survivor stories that we've shared, the goals that we've seen them meet, the successes we've seen them reach in their own lives. Literally, like Sonna said, we could sit up here and bawl just telling you story after story. But for the sake of time, I just want to keep us moving on your time. In addition to our restoration team, which some of them are up here, we also really focus on our prevention work. Obviously, if we can cut off this crime at the source to begin with, then there's no crime at all. So one of the things we're really passionate about is just education, awareness, prevention within our community. And in the last couple of years, we've launched our I Am Change men's campaign. So I have a quick video I want to show you, and then we'll get to a little bit more on our I Am Change.
I was 15 when I was recruited for sex trafficking.
Do you have the other video?
I want to say I was about 17.
No? Okay, that's okay. Well, Logan is our EPIK coordinator. So can you just talk a little bit about the heart behind I Am Change, what that means, what that is in our community?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have a story before I share a little bit about that, but my story of someone that was affected by this. So I was a young man who actually grew up in church, had a great family, both parents serving the Lord. He was actually molested in a church bathroom at 5 years old. And he kind of went through life, just in church, loved the Lord, but there wasn't a foundation there for serving him. And nothing came out more than when he left his parents' roof and went out and just decided to see what the world had to offer. And sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? It's all good. You can do whatever you want and there's zero repercussions for it. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because he ended up getting caught up in a sextortion act. And if you don't know what a sextortion act is, it's when you give pictures, videos, something of yourself to someone you think is, we'll just say a female. Turns out it's a dude. And he's like, if you don't give me money, I'm going to send this to your mom, your dad, the pastor at your church, your boss. In that moment, he had an opportunity. Do I stay hidden? Do I just keep it closed in? Or do I share what's going on and let the light shine in on it? So that night, he went to his parents' house, sat before him, let him know what was going on. And he's like, I'm addicted to pornography. I'm an alcoholic, and this is where I'm at right now. He was 24 years old when he was doing this, and had a pastor come over just that he knew, was able to share with him, and then was able to start the journey down recovery. That next week, he was in a church crossroads right off the 120 over there, where nobody knew who he was. He was able to start fresh, but he still had that restoration process to go through. So he ended up actually having to find himself in a police interrogation room where he had to tell a complete stranger these things that you would never want to tell anyone else. And in a hope to potentially catching the guy that was trying to extort him. So gives that information, some time goes by, he's back at church, and service is over, turns around and sees somebody that he recognizes. Turns out it was the same detective that was in the interrogation room with him, and he had no clue. Ends up spending a few years there, and at Crossroads, and then ends up meeting a beautiful woman, and now he's sitting in this chair talking to you guys right now. So. All of that being said, I Am Change is here because men drive demand, but men are also the solution. Mm-hmm. And so for us as men, we are called to be the priests of the home. We are called to hold the mantle in protecting our kids and our families. And so I Am Change is here because we want to give opportunities to be able to get men in the fight, men to join the call. And so what we do a few different ways is we have bi-monthly tailgates where we'll meet at a facility, church, play some cornhole, do a barbecue, and then get an opportunity to have an open forum and just talk and just be real as men. What does the culture say about who we are? Where have we dropped the ball? What are we okay with allowing to happen, both in the workplace, in our families? Are we even meeting the call or the standard that Christ has put on us? And if you're at work and people are having a conversation about Julie and you know darn well that it shouldn't be, and you're still standing there, maybe not partaking, but you're present, but you're not willing to remove yourself, or you're willing to let them keep talking and you can't say anything, you're perpetuating it. You're okay with it. And so what we want to do is be able to have conversation with each other about pornography, about how it changes the mindset and the construction of your mind to where we think pornography is okay. It's the social norm. And it changes how we view women as a commodity, as a piece of meat, as disposable, as anything I want whenever I want it, and then done afterwards. You're only there to satisfy me. That is not the case. That's not who Christ created them or us to operate. And so we want to be able to do this. Casey, Officer Casey and Justin are phenomenal. They come out and they actually partner with us at our tailgates and get an opportunity to share stories like this, to give information about what's going on, like what you heard, to our men. And then also be able to just share the information of what's going on and how we can be the change. Another way, every month I got a group of guys that meet in an office, and we actually receive phone calls from guys that are calling to purchase sex. So we have, can't share all of it just for confidentiality, but we have a program that's able to bump ads to sites, and when guys call in thinking they're getting Julie or Stacy, it's actually, hey man, yeah, Stacy's not here, and she's actually being human trafficked, and you actually don't have to do this, and end up getting to share Jesus with them and praying for them. We've had numerous opportunities where a guy's called in just calling for sex, calling to get taken care of, and we end up getting to share the gospel and praying with them afterwards. And it's sad because you see men in a very vulnerable place, and immediately your initial response is definitely to, let me find out where you're at so I can take a bat to you. But the moment when you get an opportunity to say that these are just broken men, and truly Christ loved me while I was still a sinner, and I am no different than anyone. I may be in a different circumstance now than I was, but deep down, apart from Christ, I am no different from this person. And so you are able to have compassion. You were able to see these people where they're at. You're able to hold them accountable for the decisions that they're making, but you're also able to provide compassion in that moment to be able to allow them to understand what they're doing. It's not just for you. What you're doing is causing harm to another human being. And so in doing that, we've had conversations with men, and one of the conversations is like, hey man, I need to go. I have to put my 6-year-old daughter to bed. Hey man, yeah, did you go to church or anything like that? He's like, yeah, my uncle's a pastor, and it could be anyone. You have no clue who calls, and instead of them getting, again, Stacy or Julie, you get, hey man, I'm gonna meet you where you're at, and I'm gonna come to you. And what better way to evangelize? You don't even have to go and seek them out. They're seeking you out. And you get to be able to accept a call that a real Stacy or a real Julie doesn't get. So those are just a few ways. If you are interested in any of those, we do have trainings that are required in order to be an EPIK Patrol team member. There's background checks and trainings that are required before being able to do that, because we want to put healthy people in front of broken people. We don't want to put broken people in front of broken, because that just perpetuates the issue as well. So we want to make sure you're healthy and whole, and then we can also continue to do the same, but only by Jesus. He's the only thing that makes this work.
I want you to capture something that he said, because you mentioned that demand is what's driving the market. In the world, like Brianne mentioned and like Logan mentioned, like pornography is just a normal part of people's day. And obviously, if you love and serve the Lord, we have a different perspective on that. But what we've seen over the years has really, pornography has really perpetuated the sex trafficking industry. Because even Brianne, I don't know if you want to speak to some of the things that you've been learning.
Yeah, so we were attending some of the nationwide trainings just about pornography in general, and it really, if I can, just quickly debunk a myth. There is nobody that wakes up and says, I want to go out and have sex with people 15 to 20 times a day that I don't know that are strangers. Nobody wakes up. There's no 5-year-old that says that's what I want to do when I grow up. And that seems like a silly thing for me to say, but I have people come and say, well, that girl's asking for it. She's wearing these short things. She's showing her cleavage. She's wearing booty shorts. Clearly, she's looking for that kind of attention. That might be what she's been trained to do, but that is not who she wants to be. And so going back to the pornography thing, maybe 15, 20 years ago, another thing that people will come up to me and say is, well, people have such loose morals nowadays. Why is anybody having to pay for sex anymore? They could just go meet somebody at the bar and have sex. Well, what we see without permission, and what nationwide that they're seeing, is human trafficking most of the time is not somebody going out to have sex the way that we would think about. Because pornography over the last 10 to 15 years is not just people having sex with people, it's violence. It's changed to extreme violence. So we're talking about strangling, gagging, bruising, hitting, and nobody is signing up for that. Nobody's volunteering for that. And so those were just two things that I get actually on a pretty regular basis that I always just like to mention, is that number one, nobody's signing up to do this voluntarily. It might be how they've been trained to be by their trafficker, by their pimp, by their family, by their circumstances, but nobody's looking for that. And then as far as the pornography goes, pornography is not what we might be thinking it is anymore. It is now led and driven by violence. And the more violent, the better. And the younger the person, the better. And some of those things that I know for even myself, I hadn't realized that that's the direction that pornography had gone. But when we hear that word, we now need to think aggression and violence. And nobody, male or female, is signing up for that.
I was going to say there was a quote by a buyer that we have on our information cards. And one of them is, if you have anger, you have frustration, what are you going to do? Can't go home and beat your wife. So what do? You go and you take it out on someone else. And these unfortunately, these people are the recipients of that frustration, of that anger, often, more times than not.
Yeah, we're so passionate about just the education, prevention, awareness component of that. We also are in all of our local schools, so we have a contract with Stanislaus County. It's free to the schools. We can go in the classrooms. We usually go into 8th grade and freshman health classes. We do a whole prevention curriculum. We've got stuff at our booth if you're interested in that. Request your schools to have us come in. We would love to come into the classroom and do prevention training. We're in the midst of revamping. We have great relationship, like I said, with law enforcement, also with our district attorney. Their really eyes have been open to what this crime looks like, how to prosecute it within our county, all the different nuances and things like that. We have a 209 task force that we're a part of in conjunction with our district attorney to really help on the prosecution and the justice component. We've had the privilege of going into hospitals and training nursing staff and hospital staff on what to look for, some of the medical trauma signals and signs and things like that. So I know that we're over time, so we're going to wrap up. But we really, for us, we want to give you actionable steps. So there's lots of ways that you've had, lots of different components of what we've talked about. And so if any of those pique your interest whatsoever, our whole team and then the rest of our team that's here, we're going to be out at our booth in the lobby. Man, if you're even like, I don't know if I have the capacity to work one-on-one with survivors, but like I can come into your office and file some papers, or I can come help you set up info tables like this, or I can transport people back and forth between appointments, or I want to work with our survivors, I want to go through Navigator training, whatever that looks like. We have so many on-ramps to serving with us, and we really want to empower our community to join us in the fight. We can't do it by ourselves. We're a small staff. We have a huge volunteer base just because it takes all of us. That's the beauty of the body working together, each with our different giftings and skill sets. And so the last thing that I would just leave you with is if you would just go home from today and share with one other person a piece of information that you've learned. And if you've done that, then we've automatically doubled our reach. So we'll go ahead and wrap up just because I want to honor and respect your time. Is it okay if we pray for you before we dismiss?
We'll pray real quick. That's okay. Father God, we just thank you just for what you've done here today and what you've already been doing at work in the lives of so many people, Lord. God, would your Holy Spirit just continue to stoke the fire, Lord, for your children in these people's hearts, Lord. You have called us, Lord, to go and get your kids, Lord. In whatever way that looks like for each of us individually, Jesus, whether it is truly through prayer, whether it is through finances, whether it is through our time and our effort, Jesus, God, would you just do what only you can do, Lord, and would you just move mountains to just make these kids know who you are and be able to receive the freedom, God, that they have been called to receive, God. And we just give you all the praise and all the glory for what you're doing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys.
For sharing from your hearts and your experiences with us. We're so glad that we were able to have them. Thank you all for, this has been a lot, and I know that. And there's only, the saying in churches goes, the mind can only absorb what the rear can endure. And so you've endured quite a bit today. Thankfully, there's cushions, but I just want to thank you for investing the time today to hear the truth, the reality of what's going on in our world, and hearing ways that people are making a difference, but it's not like, oh, good, they're taking care of it. I can just kind of take a vacation and not think about this. But I want to encourage you to do one thing as you, maybe even before you leave today, but at least at some point today, to take that Intercept Summit guide and somewhere in there, write down your next step. Maybe it is to volunteer somewhere. Maybe it is to become a donor. Maybe it is, you don't know yet. But your step could be, I'm going to be intentional about praying and thinking about what my part is. Because if we hear all of this and just go home, I don't know. To me, we're missing something. So I think every one of us can even play one small part. Maybe you are somebody who prays, and you're like, this is something that I'm actually going to add to my prayer list. And like you said, maybe it's just sharing it with one other person, but every single one of us, just think about this room filled with people that want to take a step to make a difference in this. It could be life-changing for somebody, even if it's just for one. So thank you all for being here. God bless you. And there's this weird blue stuff up above today. I don't know what it's coming from, but it sure is nice. I hope you get to enjoy it. Thanks for being here. God bless. Bye-bye.